Okay, we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. If you have a public comment card, feel free to walk it up. Please state the agenda item if you're speaking to an agenda item so that we can call on you at the appropriate time. Thank you. And would you please do the roll call for us first?
Robert Ackerman.
I'm here.
James Blythe. Tina Certain.
Yes, here.
Sophia Corrigetto. Thomas Hawkins.
Here.
Here.
Jason Hurst. Joshua Ney. Here. Stephanie Sutton.
Here. Next, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
Madam Chair, I move adoption of the agenda, but I propose that we move item E. Where's the lights?
Isn't that
Lights is 2, isn't it?
E2?
Oh, it is right at the top.
Yeah.
That's not been gone over that way on that agenda. Never mind. No amendments. I move the agenda as presented.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Can we get approval of the minutes of the last meeting? Anyone have any edits or a motion to approve?
I move approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Then we will move on to item 1. Mr. Castillo, can you read this item into the record for us, please?
Petition LD 22-000007 SUP Sivance Special Use Wellfield Permit 2022-417. CHW Professional Consultants on behalf of Sivance LLC owners. Request for a special use permit and Wellfield special use permit to allow for an expansion of an existing industrial facility located at 5002 Northeast 54th Place.
Great. And staff that's making a presentation?
Yes.
Mr. Edelton? Great.
If it is okay with you, I'll join you from back here. That way I can face the public and you at the same time.
Perfect.
We do have a pointer, but it looks like it doesn't show up on the monitor.
Oh, it may not work on the screen, yeah.
That's a computer. It should have had the pointer. Oh. Yeah, this pointer doesn't quite show up on the monitor.
Need one that burns a hole.
Well, I think we can go ahead and see how it works out. If it works for everyone and we need to point it out, I'll try standing up and pointing at the screen. So, good evening, Plan Board. I'm Forrest Edelton, the planner on this project and the environmental reviewer for this project, and currently the acting director for the Department of Sustainable Development.
I'm everything.
Try to do a lot of things.
You need the stack of hats
Yes,
on your head.
and I like hats, so that works for me. So this is a request for a special use permit and a Wellfield protection special use permit. The special use permit, or the need for a special use permit, is largely triggered by the industrial use itself, and the requirement or need for the Wellfield protection special use permit is triggered by the presence of chemicals and materials that are recognized as hazardous by the Alachua County Hazardous Materials Management Code. So that's what brings us here today, and the request really is triggered by a desire by the property owner and the applicant to establish a special use permit that recognizes really the uses as they are today and tries to establish a cap both on the sort of storage capacity, a developable area, and really an intensity of use for the whole site. So they do not have specific development plans in the pipeline that have been submitted to the city yet, but of course the overall sort of goal here, or the impetus for this, is that if they do need to expand the facilities, then they have the area to do that, both to the east and the west here. The eastern portion of the property, it has been recently parceled out so that it can be a part of this project. The western part of the property has been a part of the project area for some time. The company here that's operating on site has excuse me, been in business for decades in the city of Gainesville and has been monitored and reviewed under the county Environmental Protection Department Hazardous Materials Management Program for quite some time and is in good standing with them. As a part of this review process, the County Environmental Protection Department was included. They issued comments that helped inform staff's review of this and also are a part of some of the conditions that you'll see at the end of the project here. So this is the proposed special use permit area. You can see in, well, I can't use my pointer, but where the existing facility is would be inside the dotted line area here. And what was done as a part of the request for a special use permit was identifying some of the wetlands that are on the western portion of the property. And so that's what the applicant has done here, is to show those wetlands. This is a rough for the special use permit. The actual wetland delineation and then the associated buffers with this will be determined at the time of development review. So if this special use permit is approved and if the applicant does desire to expand their existing use, at that time we'll review if there are impacts to the buffers or the wetlands. Also, there is a maximum of the 7 access points here to the existing roadway network, and that of course is important for thinking about the intensity of use for the trucks associated with the industrial uses that will be accessing the roadways. So there are the SUP review criteria that you all are familiar with, and the staff has gone through these in the staff report one by one here. I believe that I've addressed the really big items here, the environmental concerns for the property, and then of course also the ingress, egress, and the intensity of use. But we can answer any of the questions on these specific items if you would like. The Wellfield Protection Special Use Permit, there is also specific criteria for that, and that in short is of course that there are criteria that try to provide extra management of these uses that have hazardous materials to try to keep those materials out of our drinking water and our water supply. And with that, staff is recommending the approval of both the Wellfield Protection SUP and the SUP with the following conditions. And there are 11 conditions here, but you can see that we have spelled out the sort of overall capacity that would fall under this special use permit. We've outlined the boundaries of the developable area, at least at the special use sort of level. They will be required to have a phase 1 environmental site assessment for that western portion of the property because we know that there are some areas out there associated with its original development as an Army Air Corps base. So there are still some abandoned wells and other elements that are out on site that we'll need to identify when development comes in. And we talked about the access points. And then also important to point out is the last condition here. This actually was not a part of the staff report that was in the backup, but this last condition here is really a attempt by both staff and the applicant to further clarify the uses really as they are today. So it was a concern that there's some language that could be construed that storage tanks or conveyance pipes and things like that would be considered something that needed to be strictly enclosed. And staff's determination is that was not the intent of that code language, but to make sure that we're clear about it for future management of the site, we wanted to include it in the condition here. So with that, that concludes my presentation, and with your permission, we can turn it over to the applicant.
Great.
Or with questions,
First,
sure.
if the board has any questions for staff.
And I have one. Previously, for some reason, we had backup on this, that's been deferred or something like that. And it seems like it referred to the purchase of a piece of property from the city. Is that included in this, or?
It is. That's the eastern portion that had been
Okay.
parceled off of the airport property.
Okay. And then I got the impression part of it was like a former, can't remember, work management, something like that, no? City
I'm not
has
sure.
some kind of facility there?
I don't know that for sure. There are a lot of similar facilities in the area.
Okay, so that, it's never going to include this piece down here to the southeast, where that, whatever that building is there.
That's not the intent of this
Okay.
proposal, no. The city of, the one that's marked City of Gainesville there,
Yeah, probably.
that is the part of the property that you're talking about. That's
Okay.
recently, or is in the works for being transferred.
Okay, okay. But that's not currently included, or it is included?
It is included in this request for both of the SUVs.
I had it in a slightly different place. That's okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff from the board? Okay, then we will jump over to the applicant.
Good evening, Ryan Thompson with CHW, agent for the applicant. I do have a presentation, but I do want to be quick here tonight, knowing your agenda for the evening. Just to maybe clarify a little bit on the eastern portion, we did look at that very diligently. We did a phase 1 on that portion. We had a professional environmental scientist review that site. He identified a wetland that we have stayed out of and kept off of our property. The property immediately to the south is actually part of the parcel for the Nordstrom's distribution center, so that would not be part of the application. Really, the intent is for them to be able to expand. Sivance was established in 1959 by 2 chemistry professors at the University of Florida, and it's operated continuously on this site since then. So we appreciate working with staff. They've been very great to work with and understanding our clients' needs to be able to respond to industry changes. And also Alachua County staff working with us on the conditions. And it may have gotten lost in the 300-something pages of backup, but Mr. Chris Gilbert, who's the program manager for Alachua County Hazardous Materials Management, provided a letter in support of the conditions for the application. So with that, I'll conclude. If there are any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicants?
Okay. At this time, there isn't a development project, but I'm assuming there's one anticipated?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they're going to start working on the east side. That's why they're going through the process working with the city on that property. To my knowledge, it's for storage of materials so that they can, meet production demands.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have one public comment card, so we'll start with Kristen Rubin, if you'd like to step up to the podium, and then we'll take others. Yes.
I apologize. I am actually speaking, I want to speak on 4, 5, and 6.
Okay, yeah, it says E1, but I'll change it to 4, 5, and 6. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak to this first item? Step right up to the podium, please.
Hello, my name's David Hill. I'm very familiar with Sivance. It's a big chemical company. They've had a couple of close calls out there before. I used to do work I know a lot of the guys out there, and there's a lot of nasty stuff. What are they proposing as far as a chemical plant out there?
So at this time, there isn't a site plan or a specific building or anything like that proposed. This is just related to allowing certain uses on the property and expanding the overall boundary of the site. So if they decide to come in with a specific building doing specific work with specific chemicals, that will all have to go through its own application process. And I don't know if you want to expand upon that at all for us, but this is not for a specific building or expansion or anything like that. It's just related to the overall property. But
Okay.
I know that's difficult to
If they
really
move out there,
understand.
so they'll be storing what kind of materials?
They would tell us before that started. Right now, we don't
Okay.
know. Before they did it, they would have to come back and say,
Okay.
we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And the
And-
petitioner may want to answer that too. I'm sorry to say.
Any site plan would have to be approved by both, the city planning department, which includes environmental review, as well as the county hazardous materials department.
Okey-dokey.
And
Did you want to expand on that, Ryan?
just for the record, thank you, Madam Chair. They don't have any intent on doing anything different than what they've been doing today, and there's very extensive reporting that they do, both at the local, state, and federal level. Thank you.
And that's the intent of the staff's position and the staff report as well, is that really this is the request for a special use to expand what is there today with some boundaries.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this item? Not seeing any, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion or a motion.
Madam Chair, I move, the printed agenda is different than the agenda that's posted online, which is causing confusion.
As far as like the item number?
I move approval of petition LD 22, that's the actual.
It has more
It's
zeros.
the first one, there you go.
Yeah.
00, LD 22-7, I move approval of LD 22-7 SUD.
Okay, do we have a second? Second by Mr. Ackerman. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Castillo, could you read item 2 into the record, please?
Item E2, petition LD 22-000089, City of Gainesville, the applicant requests to amend the City of Gainesville outdoor lighting to include FDOT lighting standards. There are a number of benefits that may arise from including lighting. However, if not carefully implemented, the benefit of increased lighting can have negative effects on public safety and may raise environmental concerns.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Dan Zhu, a planner with Sustainable Development. I'm presenting LD 22-000089 lighting standard updates. So outdoor lighting has been receiving a lot of attention from our citizens and stakeholders. During the July City Commission meeting, staff was instructed to prepare a preliminary lighting study regarding including the FDOT standard while we wait for the comprehensive lighting study from Kimberly Horn. Before we start, let's take a look at some terminology. First, we have foot candles, which is the unit of illuminance. Secondly, we have lumen, which is the total amount of light emitted in all directions. 1 lumen per square foot equals to 1 foot candle. Next, we have illuminance, which is the density of light on a surface. And finally is the uniformity ratios. So it mainly tells you how even the light is. On this image in the center, it has a poor uniformity ratio, where we can see the dark patches and the light patches, versus the image on the right has a good uniformity ratio. The light is even throughout. And this image shows what is the useful light, which in this area. And the area being highlighted is the focus of this study. Next, let's take a look at some selected site photos. The first site is located on Archer Road, directly facing from the Wawa gas station. We can see from the image, it's relatively dark in the pedestrian area. The foot candles ranges from 0.4 to 1.6 when directly under the light bulb. The second site is located in the College Park area. The foot candle ranges from 0 to 3.1. The unevenness of the light will likely to causing the pedestrian feel unsafe. And the last one we have here is the intersection of University Avenue and Main Street. There are light posts, but they were not turned on. As a matter of fact, majority of the pedestrian area in downtown is relatively bright, with an average foot candle of 4.4. So in order to improve the lighting condition in Gainesville, staff have several recommendations. Staff is proposing to add the definitions of pedestrian and pedestrian areas into the Land Development Code. In terms of the pedestrian area lightings, staff have some recommendations in terms of average horizontal illuminance and uniformity ratios. For the transit zone U1 to U3 and any residential development. In the transit zone U4 to U7 and any mixed-use development. U8 to DT and any commercial development. Regarding the alley lighting, here are some recommendations for the residential development, mixed-use development, and commercial development. These recommendations are based on the reference like FDOT Green Book, Federal Pedestrian Lighting Primer, and various jurisdiction lighting ordinance. Please refer to the staff report for details, and that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Su?
I have a couple. Is there any opportunity for us to require that this be retroactive into some of our darker pedestrian areas? Two, would this enable the use of existing lamp posts or street lights? Meaning, can you put or require pedestrian lighting, street light pedestrian lighting? Will that be permitted? And three, can we require in the future probably that pedestrian lighting be mounted on a building?
Thank you. I think all this can be addressed in the later phase when the comprehensive lighting study comes back from Kingley Horn. As this is a preliminary lighting study, and we are mostly regulating the foot candles and the uniformity ratios. And in terms of the darker area, and if they have already been built, then that may not be the main focus for this study at the current stage. But I'm sure in the future stage, we will need to consider those areas as well.
For instance, I just happened to notice on the new building at 17th and University, it's a 2-block project that runs to the north and along 17th Street, which is arguably going to be a heavy pedestrian area. It's dark. There's not much light there. Anyway, I was hoping that there's a way to address some of these high pedestrian areas with some retroactive work, and maybe we just have to do it with the city. So what you're saying is there's an additional study coming that will piggyback on this information And then there will be a more comprehensive lighting.
Correct.
ordinance. Okay.
So the expected date for that is January, like early next year. So the specific date, we don't know for sure. But a couple weeks ago, they did give us a midpoint presentation. So a lot of the information I mentioned here was also included in that study.
And any opportunity as new projects are proposed that we could encourage them to meet these standards? Yeah, my concern is we're doing a lot of construction right now.
Yes.
This has taken a year. If we wait another year, I'm afraid we're going to miss a lot of lighting and pedestrian areas, which is where most of our activity is right now.
And the city commission has the same concern. That's why they would prefer staff to have a preliminary lighting study prior to the completion of the comprehensive lighting study.
Okay, we're all on the same page.
Yeah, and I might be able to jump into a little bit that, yes, exactly what Dan said. This is really intended as a stopgap because of places like 17th Street and several others that are dark, that the commission saw that, and the citizens have pointed that out. So this really is trying to get us as best we can in this meantime before the Kinley Horn study comes back, and then we can start crafting the more comprehensive policy that touches all.
Okay, so right now, if we implement this, then that's going to be applicable to new buildings coming online.
It will influence the way that we review the lighting. Yes.
Okay, that sounds fine.
Has there been any coordination with the folks in GRU Electric that do rental lighting, and can they feel like they can comply with this with the GRU light fixtures?
And so before we put together the staff report and GRU and Public Works, we conducted meetings every 2 weeks and sometimes weekly. So put together this information, and yes, you did have a lot of corporations before you see the presentation of the report today.
Great. Any other questions from the board for staff? Okay. Any members of the public that wish to speak to this item, feel free to come up to the podium. I don't have any cards for this one. Doesn't look like there's anybody. All right, bringing it back to the board for a motion, hopefully.
I move that we approve petition LD 22-000089.
Second.
Great. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Mr. Castillo, can you read item 3 into the record, please?
Petition LD 22-000048, SUP EDA Professional Consultants on behalf of Super America 13th Street. Request for a special use permit and Wellfield special use permit to allow for the development of an automotive fueling station. This request is for a special use permit to allow for the development of an automotive fueling station with a total of 11 fueling positions, gas canopy, and underground fuel storage tanks currently within the tertiary zone.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Finetta Lewis, and I serve as a member of the planner with the Department of Sustainable Development. For your review and consideration, I am pleased to present a special use permit and a Wellfield special use permit, LD 22-00048. Due to the number of fueling positions being requested, a special use permit is required. The site is located in the tertiary Wellfield protection zone, and the applicant must apply for a Wellfield protection special use permit as required by Article 3, Division 6 of the Land Development Code for the underground fuel storage tanks. Next slide, please. This petition is privately initiated by the agent EDA and property owner and requests a special use permit. The subject property is approximately 0.650 acres in size and is located at 5310 Northwest 13th Street on the northwest corner of Northwest 13th Street and Northwest 53rd Avenue intersection. The property is zoned automotive-oriented business, which allows for gasoline alternative fuel stations. The site is surrounded by commercial uses to the north, south, and west of the property. and warehouse and industrial uses to the east of the property. The special use permit and Wellfield special use permit is requested to allow for the development of the automotive fueling station with a total of 11 fueling positions, gas canopy, and underground fuel storage tanks within the tertiary Wellfield zone. The current zoning is automotive-oriented business, and current land use is commercial. Next slide, please. Vehicle access, would you back up one slide? Thank you, Selena. One more slide. Should be slide 3. Thank you. Vehicle access to the subject property is from 2 existing driveways. One driveway is off of Northwest 53rd Avenue. The second driveway is off of Highway 441. The off-street parking service and loading areas where required will not adversely impact adjacent properties zoned for single-family residential use. Next slide, please. The current land use is commercial, and the current zoning is automotive-oriented business. The development associated for this request is for a gas station. And this development is allowed by right due to the intensity and the location in the Wellfield, which is a special use permit, which is required. The applicant will need a special use permit to allow for additional fueling stations. Next slide, please. This is the site plan that showed the location of the 11 fueling positions. If you notice that you can see the 1, 2, I don't have the clicker here, but you have the ones that's actually 5, they have been highlighted, the fueling stations itself. Next slide, please. In section 30-5.14, gasoline and alternative fuel stations, up to 12 fueling positions may be allowed as part of the plan, development, rezoning, or special use permit. The applicant has already put in their special use permit application that has been submitted. The design requirements, all fuel pumps and pump islands shall be have a minimum setback distance of 15 feet away from the property line. And I would like to note that this has been done within the special use permit application, and all fuel pumps and pump islands are set back at least 15 feet from the property lines. Next slide, please. Special use permit review criteria. In accordance with section 30-3.24, the special use permit shall approved by the city plan board. I would just like to give some highlights of the areas. The use standards describe consistency with the required land development code standards. The process used meets the comprehensive plan transportation mobility element policy 10.4.3. Gasoline and alternative fuel stations shall be specifically regulated by the Land Development Code. The proposed use is consistent with the destination commercial land use on the property, which allows for the encouraging the development of oriented commercial development. The proposed use is also consistent with the BA zoning district, which allows the development of gasoline stations by right. The proposed gas station is a subject property, will not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. The proposed new underground fuel station tanks are subject to review and approval by the City of the Gainesville staff, including staff from Gainesville Regional Utilities, as to their consistent with the Wellfield Protection Special Use Permit requirements. It is not expected that the proposed development will have a negative impact on surrounding properties due to noise, glare, exterior lighting, or odor effects. There are no single-family uses, no single-family residential uses adjacent to this property. And the proposed project meets the use standards established in section 30.5-14. Gasoline and alternative fuel stations. Next slide, please. Wellfield Protection Special Use Permit. This report includes responses on how the special use permit criteria in section 30-3.24 have been met. The existing facilities are in compliance with the Alachua County Hazardous Materials Management Code and are required to comply with all applicable state and federal regulations. ACEPD Hazardous Materials Program has been involved in the review of this subject site, and the proposed new gas station use will be the subject and comply with the Hazardous Materials Management Code. Staff has reviewed the application that is before you and meets the Wellfield Special Use Review requirement and criteria. This is found in our Land Development Code. This also includes the consistency and comprehensive plan and compatibility with the surrounding land uses. Next slide, please. Staff recommends approval of petition LD 22-000048. With conditions, applicant has agreed with all conditions, and that has been supplied in the staff report. Staff moved to approve a petition LD 22-00000 with conditions. Any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff on this item?
I had one. Would you put that slide, the last slide back up, please? I think it was 3. I said no. Condition number 2, where they're going to provide written confirmation of existing recognized environmental concerns and pay, the previous owners would pay their assessment. Have we ever gotten into like this little tangle where the previous owner doesn't want to pay for their remediation of the site? Because that's what I read in here, that it's already known that there is some environmental contamination from the previous gas station that was there. We're going to expand and put more tanks there, and that's not too far from where our existing wells and stuff are up on 53rd up there. I was just wondering about that.
I will refer that to the environmental coordinator / our director / all things, which is Mr. Ellington.
Yes, the previous owners are required by the state as a part of this remediation program and all of the legal ramifications and proceedings that are associated with that to clean up what has been discovered on that site. Really, the enforcement of that is at the state level, but we want to make sure that that's a part of the review and discussion for this project.
As a practical matter, the previous owners of that site have a new gas station just a little bit south.
Yeah, left one spot dirty, then they took it to another one.
Yeah, that's apparently. Well, it's an old site, and the gas tanks leaked. All of them.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
At this time, with your permission, we would like the applicant to come forward.
Great.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Plan Board members. My name is Onelia Lazari. I am with EDA Consultants. Trying to get my PowerPoint up here.
Looks like it's the last one
Thank
on that
you.
road. There we go. Yep.
And may I ask, will this work?
Yep.
Thank you. This is petition LD 22-48 SUP, a request for a special use permit to allow a gas station with 11 fueling positions at an existing convenience store. This is the reinstatement of a previous gas station use at the site. That dates back, according to the property appraiser's records, to 1985. I believe that Mr. Ackerman just referred to that fact that it was an older gas station there. There was a demolition application that was approved by the city on 7/19/21, and the fueling positions, the gas pumps, fuel storage tanks, and the canopy were removed sometime after that date. At the site at that time, there were 8 fueling positions. This is also a request for a Wellfield protection special use permit to allow the underground fuel storage tanks in the tertiary Wellfield zone. This is the site location at 5310 Northwest 13th Street. I will point out that this is in an area that is very industrial and commercial. I'm sorry, my pointer, I don't think,
Can't see it.
actually,
It's working. It's
it
actually
does.
working.
Okay. Let me try to step aside here. This is the Home Depot property down here. There is a railroad line that runs on the opposite side of US 441. This is industrial and warehouse use. This is all the tractor supply, and these are all automotive type uses to the west. This shows the site. It's recent enough that it was there that Google Earth maps are still showing the gas canopy location here and the pumps. And this is a close-up. Ms. Lewis pointed out that the existing land use on the site is commercial and the existing zoning is business automotive. Some background information for you about this. First of all, the site currently contains a convenience store. After the pumps were removed, the convenience store remained at the site. The former use was a Circle K gas station and convenience store that had 8 fueling positions, a gas canopy, and underground fuel storage tanks. And again, a use that dates back at the site to 1985. We talked about the demo permit that the city issued at the site for the gas canopy and removal of the underground fuel storage system. The site was vacated by Circle K and sold to Super America. And Super America now wishes to reinstate gas pumps at the site. So they want to have 11 fueling positions, which would be a net of 3 additional fueling positions at the site, the gas canopy, and the underground storage tanks. And these are allowed within the city's code by special use permit and Wellfield protection special use permit. So the redevelopment of this site requires several aspects of the code. The first is the zoning, and the zoning allows for a gas station at the site as long as it's consistent with section 30-5.14, which is the use standard section. There are 20 review criteria there, and 6 fueling positions are allowed by right and up to 12 by the special use permit. So that's why we're here with this next step, the special use permit, because we are requesting 11 fueling positions. And the Wellfield protection special use permit is required due to the underground fuel storage tanks. This site redevelopment is supported by future land use element objective 2.1, which says that redevelopment should be encouraged to promote compact, vibrant urbanism, improve the condition of blighted areas, discourage urban sprawl, and foster compact development patterns that promote transportation choice. When we get to the site plan, I'll illustrate this, but the redevelopment will add sidewalks and sidewalk connections to the convenience store across both property frontages, US 441 and Northwest 53rd Avenue, to promote pedestrian access and safety. And the reinstatement of the gas pumps at the site will reduce the distance that vehicles in the neighborhood have to travel for this type of service. As with all things, we have to justify what we are doing. This is a reinstatement of gas pumps that were at the site. The special use application was submitted to the city less than 9 months from the application for the removal of pumps at the site. So it's very recent that those gas pumps were there. As I've said in a previous section, gas stations are allowed in the BA zoning with use standards, and that's section 30-5.14. The code allows additional fueling positions beyond the 6 that are allowed by right with a special use permit. So we are here tonight. That's why we are requesting the special use permit. The underground fuel storage tanks are allowed by Wellfield Protection special use permit. No modifications are being proposed to the existing convenience store. The pumps will be added back in the prior location that they were in. The site redevelopment will improve pedestrian mobility by adding sidewalks and sidewalk connections. And this illustrates what I'm talking about here. Along the southern portion here is Northwest 53rd Avenue. This will be a 10-foot path that's being added. And then, as you can see, there's a connection to the existing convenience store that's outlined in red. And I apologize, my pointer is not working very well here. And then along US 441, or Northwest 13th Street, in the darker blue color is a 6-foot sidewalk that will be added to the site. And FDOT has indicated that this driveway will need to be narrowed just a bit. So that is the existing situation. And then the canopy, hopefully this will work, the canopy will be in this location over the pumps. There is one diesel pump up here, and hopefully, sorry, my pointer is not working well. But at any rate, there's one up in that northern section. Ms. Lewis went through very well what the special use criteria were and the Wellfield Protection special use criteria were. And so I'd like to spend a little time on the use standard that's in section 30-5.14. And section A of that allows for certain accessory uses. And we are not proposing any rental vehicles at the site. There will be no automotive repairs at the site. There will be retail sale of gasoline and diesel fuel at the site. And the vending machines will be under the roof of the convenience store. Section B is about the number of fueling positions that are allowed. And again, in the code, it specifies that up to 12 fueling positions may be allowed as part of a PD rezoning or a special use permit process, and that's why we're here this evening for the special use permit. In terms of the design requirements, the pumps are required to be set back a minimum distance of 15 feet from any property line or right-of-way line, and we meet that requirement. The second is that the gasoline and alternative fuel pumps and accessory automotive uses shall be located to the rear or side of buildings. Unfortunately, because this is a redevelopment, we cannot, due to site constraints, put the pumps anywhere except where they were, again, dating back to 1985, so they will be located in the front. The third is that the number and width of driveways shall be minimized. There are only 2 existing driveways, one off of each highway or street, one off US 441, one off Northwest 53rd Avenue, and we are going to narrow the one as per FDOT requirements on Northwest 13th Street. Cross-access or joint-use driveways shall be provided to adjacent non-residential developments. The driveway off US 441 connects this to the development immediately to the west, and that development connects into the Tractor Supply store. So we have good interconnectivity and cross-access here. And then the next requirement for design is about glazing. However, there are no changes proposed to the existing convenience store building. A public entrance shall be provided that faces the street, and the entrance to this convenience store does front on US 441. Pedestrian and bicycle access shall be provided from public sidewalks to any retail or restaurant facilities on the site. This development is adding a public sidewalk along US 441 and a 10-foot path along Northwest 53rd Avenue and connections. I will go back just for a minute to the site plan. We do not yet show the connection from the sidewalk along US 441, but we have one planned. We are just trying to locate the safest and most accessible route for that connection. The next has to do with the canopy height, and it shall not exceed 15 feet per the code, and we meet that requirement. Perimeter buffers, buffer B, and the planning staff has indicated that since this is a redevelopment, that no new landscaping is required. The dumpster location is at the rear of this building, and it's staying in the location that it's currently located. Car wash facilities is the next, number 12, and we are not proposing any car wash facilities at this site. And the last is that a convenience store or restaurant or combination thereof shall be present when fueling positions exceed 6. And as we've indicated, the existing convenience store will remain at the site. This is consistent with the future land use element policy 4.1.1 with commercial, which discusses that the commercial land use is on areas most appropriate for large-scale highway-oriented commercial uses. And certainly a gas station is a highway-oriented use. And it's consistent with that commercial designation. And with that, I'm going to conclude my presentation. As we've indicated, we have in our justification report, and Ms. Lewis talked about it, how we're meeting the criteria for a special use permit. There are 11 of those. And then there are 7 review criteria for Wellfield protection special use permit. I can go over those if you feel it's necessary, but those are in our backup material. And in summary, the applicant agrees with all the staff conditions that have been provided. They have recommended approval, and we are requesting approval of petition LD 22-48 SUP with staff conditions. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for the applicants? Thomas, do you have something?
I've got
you were going to
comments.
say something.
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
I do have a couple of public comment cards on this item, so we'll go ahead and take public comment. The first one is T. Sperling Wood, it looks like.
It's freezing in here.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Sperlingwood, and I was just going to be real brief on this, but one of the things I was looking at when they wanted a special use permit to add 11 pumps where there was 6. If you've ever tried to get into that gas station when it was the BP, it was almost impossible. The traffic there at 53rd and 13th is very difficult. And when they're going to narrow the driveway coming in off of 441, they're probably going to have more problems. So if you guys do approve it, you need to make sure that that's going to function there at that intersection, because it's already, when it was shut down and they're not going in and out for gas, it's been a lot easier at the light there. The other thing I was going to ask, that we're going to do a special permit, like Ms. Certain said, that's right on top of our Murphy Wellfield right there. To the north of there, we have 16 wells there where we pull our drinking water out of the aquifer. That's where GRU gets their water. And the other thing is, when are we going to start looking toward more EV stations rather than putting gas and tanks in the ground? We've already had this leak out. We've already had a problem. When are we going to move forward and go to the next level? Thank you.
Thank you. The next person I have is Deborah Stuckey, I believe. I apologize.
And my comment is for the next issue.
E4, not E3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. although I do live close by, and I agree with what she was saying about it's very constrained to get in there.
Okay, anyone else that would like to speak to this item, please step up to the podium. Okay, not seeing anyone, I'll bring it back to the board for comments or any motion.
I have some comments.
Go for it.
I'm really frustrated that we get applications that so clearly don't meet our standards that come to us with staff recommendations for approval. We have standards for glazing that we don't even have elevations of the buildings. We get to the end of the applicant's presentation to learn that the applicant doesn't meet the standards. The explanation is there's a building that doesn't meet the standards, they're not going to change it to meet the standards they need for the permit, and we should accept that. We have site design standards that tell us the pumps go in the rear of the building, or the side of the building. No discussion of that in city presentation. The applicant did acknowledge that they don't meet that standard, and I appreciate that. But the explanation is, well, we're just not going to redesign the site, but we're going to leave it like it was. That's not our standard. If that's the answer, operate a convenience store, but you don't get the special use permits to operate the fueling station. I'm really frustrated. We don't have a site plan in our backup. The first time we saw a site plan, and it does show the pedestrian access that the code requires, was when Ms. Lazari presented it, and I appreciate seeing that. I don't understand why that's not in our backup. And then lastly, I just want to really emphasize the history of this site. A few years ago, an agent for the applicant stood in front of this board and told us how bad the current site plan is. And Bob made the motion to pull their special use permit and relocate it to the new site, because this site doesn't have adequate access. The agent for the property owner told us that. They said it doesn't work. Exactly what the person who gave public comment told us, that it's not safe access and it's problematic, is exactly what, and it wasn't somebody from Engdemet and Associates, but somebody from the representative of the prior owner told us this site planning just doesn't work. And the proposal just doesn't meet our standards and code. And I'm frustrated that we spend so much time talking about things that so clearly don't meet our standards. We need to be handling these things when applicants are before staff, not when they're before the planning board. And I have a motion that I can make, but I prefer to hear other people's comments. I don't want to put it on the floor before we hear what folks have to say.
I absolutely agree with Mr. Hawkins. This site was always very constrained with 6, I guess 8 pumps. The access to it is very difficult. It's in a very busy place. I agree that saying this is a redevelopment when it basically needs to be, if it's going to be a gas station, it needs to be completely redesigned. And I believe that the building needs to be pulled up to the street the way the previous owner was required to do. And I agree with Mr. Hawkins, this does not meet our standards.
I understand by right they can do 8. Me, in 2022, I cannot vote for expansion of fossil fuel infrastructure. If they're giving them 3 more units, I can't do that. When they say the proposed use will not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare of the public, I don't know, like, burning the planet seems like a problem. Like, I can't vote for that.
I think we're ready to make a motion. I'm going to move that we deny petition LD 22-000048 SUP.
Second.
Okay, and I'll be recusing myself from this petition. I haven't announced that yet, as well as the other items on the agenda this evening. So all of those in favor of the motion?
Madam
Yes.
Chair, may we ask for a continuation to the next plan board meeting to attempt to work with staff on some redesign of the site?
Are you willing to amend the motion to continue the item?
I mean, I know for me, I'm kind of on the same board of not wanting to give more fueling stations, I guess, or fueling positions. So I don't know that the concept as a whole I would still support even if the site
Well,
design
the
changes.
the fact is, they do have a right to, but they do need to meet our standards. So I don't think we have a right to turn it down because it's gas. I do think we can require that they meet our standards, and I would be willing to give them a shot at that by continuing it to next month. But you're the motion holder.
Well, Sophia's motion, I mean, I wouldn't want to continue it to the next meeting, because that's a lot of work to get done, to be able to have something. I mean, y'all.
Well, we can continue it.
Continue it
Just
until they're ready
continue
to
it?
come back.
I mean, I don't like that.
It'll just have to be noticed again.
I'm trying to train a toddler at home, and so I'm learning the consequences of constant forgiveness, but that's, yeah, let's do it.
The Adolf Hitler of trial.
Y'all know what I mean.
Okay, I'll modify the motion to continue until,
Second or concurs.
Okay, so the motion is to continue the item until staff can come back with a more compliant site plan.
Or a fully compliant site.
Fully compliant site plan. All of those in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So we will see this item again at a future meeting. Moving on to item 4. Mr. Castillo, can you read this item into the record, please?
E4, petition LD-22-105 LUC land use amendment from single-family and residential low to MOR to a 2022-562 EDA Consultants Incorporated, amendment to the City of Gainesville Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use map from City of Gainesville single family and residential low to mixed use.
Mr. Edelson.
Four and five related.
4, 5, and 6 are all related.
Yeah.
I'm having some issues on this iPad, and I was like, they look to be related.
Yes, they're all related. Actually, it looks like maybe we're getting one presentation for all of them. Do we need to read them all into the record, or how do you want to handle that? I see all of the items
It's a
up
combined
there.
presentation.
That's my preference.
Yeah, I think we should
Yeah.
read them all into the record, and we can make, separate motions if needed. But Mr. Castillo, would you mind?
Not at all. E5, this petition LD-22-000106, we need to remove those zeros there. GNV EDA Consultants Incorporated, rezoning of property from Alachua County Agriculture to City of Gainesville Plan Development District. This petition proposes to rezone approximately 744 acres of property located north of US 441 and both east and west of State Road 121 from Alachua County Agriculture District to City of Gainesville Plan Development. And E6, petition LD-22-107 CPA, EDA Consultants Incorporated, amendment to the City of Gainesville Comprehensive Plan, amending policy 4.3.4 of the Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Element. Petitions LD-22-105 OEC and LD-22-107 CPA proposed to amend the future land use map of the Comprehensive Plan by amending the land use category in policy 4.3.4 of the Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use.
Thank you.
So, Forrest Edelton, Acting Director for Department of Sustainable Development. I believe we've got City Attorney Sean McDermott on Zoom, who was going to go ahead and tee this up for where this project is currently. I'm sure you all are familiar with the site and some of the history behind it, but maybe are not fully up to speed where it is, and I think that Sean's going to help us get there.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you, Sean.
Okay,
Welcome.
great. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Sean McDermott, Senior Assistant City Attorney. I apologize for not being in person. I was hoping to be in person tonight, but my daughter passed on a sinus infection to me that I'm fighting, and I wanted to spare everybody there. So, But in any event, as Forrest mentioned, after discussing this item with staff, we thought it would be good to give kind of introduction to this item just because it has a long history in the city of Gainesville and just kind of the history with this property and where we are at now and what has led to these two items being before the city plan board. And so, as you probably have noticed in your agenda, there's two items dealing with the Weyerhaeuser property, which the Weyerhaeuser property in total is roughly 1,800 acres in the northern section of the city. And the two items that are before you are a land use item, which was amending the comprehensive plan and the comp plan policy that particularly applies to this property, and also the associated rezoning. I know the plan board members know this, but just for the benefit of everybody in the public, land use in the state of Florida is regulated in general with a two-tier system where where there is a comprehensive plan established for property to dictate what can be built and what kind of uses can go on in that property. And that comprehensive plan level is when the city is acting in its full legislative authority and kind of can just act in the greatest discretion that a city has to kind of plan for the smart use of the property into the future. There are limits to that in the property rights being number one, particularly in the state of Florida. So there are some constitutional and statutory limits to just exactly what a city can dictate what can go on in a property. But nevertheless, the comp plan level is kind of that high level planning that then gets implemented by that second tier, which is the zoning level. And so the city would implement zoning districts and land development regulations to really put some meat on the bones of the comprehensive plan. So when you hear comp plan or comprehensive plan or land use, that's that top tier level, and then zoning districts and land development regulations, that's all kind of the lower level. The key distinction being when you get to that lower level, in particular, rezoning, the city is acting in a more constrained fashion, so where it's I guess you could say like the picture has already been drawn in the first level, and the zoning level is more so just coloring the picture and finishing it up. I know it's a silly example, but that's kind of so you're kind of bound by what has already been done at the comprehensive planning level. So with that in mind, and this property in particular, just the very quick history is going all the way back to 1992, and then again in 2007, this property was annexed into the city of Gainesville from the county. Right on the heels of that final annexation in 2007, actually in 2009, the city of Gainesville applied the land use change to the property, so applied the comprehensive planning level regulations to this property, and also adopted a comprehensive plan policy that's specific to this property that is actually codified in the city of Gainesville's comprehensive plan. So that was in 2009. And I'll just say, to date, this property has not received any city of Gainesville zoning. And that's a long time to go without zoning, because usually when a property is annexed into the city, we pretty quickly apply land use and zoning to that property. But so zoning has never been applied, but the land use comprehensive plan policy was adopted in 2009. And one of the requirements in that land use policy that is still in our comprehensive plan is that the southern portion of the total 1,800 acres, so the southern portion, which makes up roughly 744 acres, that area is to receive plan development zoning to implement the comprehensive plan policy. So that is dictated in our current comp plan, is that the southern portion needs to receive a plan development zoning. And for a variety of reasons that I won't get into, but that just hasn't taken place yet. Fast forwarding to 2007, there was an application filed by the applicant, to have that southern portion, in fact, zoned to planned development zoning. It worked its way through staff, and then when it went before the city plan board, staff, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the city plan board recommended approval of the planned development zoning application. And then, of course, it goes on to the city commission. I will say staff had concerns with that application and voiced those concerns to the city commission. And then the city commission in December of 2019 decided not to go with the plan board recommendation. In fact, denied the planned development application that was before them in 2019. They denied the application based on they articulated kind of three specific reasons of why it was denied. One was just general environmental concerns. The application in the city commission's perspective, it left some provisions that weren't protective enough of particularly the wetlands and the wetland areas on the property, the buffers around it. The city commission also thought that the application was too sprawling, so it was too spread out, low density development that kind of just it would be an inefficient use of such a large area of land, and also not protective of the natural resources on the property because it would be sprawling in that fashion. And then the third general concern was transportation issues, and just because it would, from the commission's perspective, be a more low-density, sprawling use of land, that it wouldn't promote mobility for the property, and it would be very car-centric. And there were some concerns whether RTS could run a bus out there if the numbers would allow for it, and some other transportation concerns. So again, because of those concerns, the city commission in December 2019 denied the application. That was immediately followed up with two separate cases that are currently being litigated in court. Weyerhaeuser, just two challenges. One was just based on very broad terms, just that the city commission's denial is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. That's the basis of one challenge. And another one is just that the city commission, their decision that when they went to deny the application, that it was done improperly for different reasons. The city's been successful to date in defending those cases, but the important point, that I really want to kind of, communicate to you here is that even if the city was to ultimately prevail in both of those cases, we're really no further along. And the reason I say that is we're still back to square one, where this property remains with no zoning assigned by the city of Gainesville. And again, per the comp plan policy, it does dictate that ED zoning would be in fact assigned to the property. So that's all to say it doesn't necessarily benefit the city or make too much sense to to continue with this litigation if a resolution of some sort can ultimately come to be. And that kind of brings us to why we're back before you tonight, is because concurrent with these two cases being litigated, the city staff has really been proactive and sitting down with the Weyerhaeuser team and their agents, which include EDA. And I will say, to Weyerhaeuser's credit, it has been very, good faith discussions, and it's just been very productive, professional all around. And because of this opportunity, staff has been able to work with Weyerhaeuser on specifically those three concerns, again, that the city commission voiced in basically their denial back in 2019 on. And so, and again, so the discussions have been very productive. Weyerhaeuser has been very receptive to the city's concerns, and as I think Forrest will report here with more than details, the end product here is one that not only Weyerhaeuser supports, but city staff is also in full support of it. and is recommending approval of the applications before you tonight. And just to, and it would, of course, it would settle the two litigation cases, but that's almost kind of just a side benefit because, you know, the more important thing again is just ultimately what to do with this property in a way that implements the comp plan policy that has already been adopted and kind of dictates this property. So, but one last thing I did want to note is before you know, as I mentioned, what needs to be done for the comp plan is that PD zoning needs to be implemented. But of course, again, you'll notice that that comp plan policy is also before you for some amendments. The reason that is being brought back to you is you know, I would say that is more so was staff's request to Weyerhaeuser because for the city to achieve some of the greater protections that the city would like to have seen in this PD application, it kind of required some amendments to the governing comp plan policy to allow that to happen. So that's why it's before you. It wasn't necessarily like Weyerhaeuser asking, you know, to go back and amend the comp plan policy, but it was more of a staff request and they had obliged. So yeah, that's kind of the status. All the concerns really have been addressed, and I'll allow Forrest to kind of go into more detail with exactly how that's been. And yeah, and then I'll just be here in case there's any questions of any kind. And yeah, just thanks for your consideration.
Thank you. If it's a good time for a break for questions for Sean.
I would just make a comment. My recollection is the planning board did approve the PD, but that we required that the additional acreage that the petitioner at that time wanted to continue to farm and keep it agricultural be converted to city conservation. And I think that's what killed the deal. I also recall that after the city turned it down, it came back before the plan board with a request that we zone in agricultural. And as far as I know, that's what we did. I don't know what happened to that, but anyway, just thought I'd throw that in.
Yeah, and I can just speak to that. That request is officially been removed from the table. So that there was several different angles that the city has been contemplating based on commission direction. But without going into those details, those are all no longer on the table. So this is the you know, only open application that, as far as this property is concerned, right?
Great, thank you. Mr. Edelton.
Sure, I will just give a little bit more detail like Sean was saying. I can't get it. It's not working. But yeah, if you want to click through it, I'm fine with that. That's a good place to start. Okay, so as Sean said, there's really the three sort of main concerns that the City Commission brought up in 2019 that staff and the applicant have tried to address from here. Sean gave you a good overview of where this is. This is the area map that shows you the location here. It's to the north and east of 441 on State Road 121. Right about where it branches off. Where it branches to the west, it'll take you to La Crosse. Where it branches to the east, it'll take you to Brooker. Okay, it looks like I got it now. Okay. So real quick with the current land use, as Sean described, this is what was proposed previously. You can see here it's got in the yellow single family. It's got in sort of the clearer white area here, the residential low, much lower densities and intensities than what are being proposed currently. And it's got in the green here the conservation areas that largely align with identified wetland areas and some of their associated buffers. The PUD area there is more of a town center type area that has some of the more concentrated intensity of the land use. Here's the current zoning. Again, this is the agricultural zoning designation for the property here. And you can see that it's agriculture to the east, and then some of the associated zoning to the west here. That's with GRU and the Deer Haven plant. So this table, real quick, just tries to show some of the changes here. Previously, the residential low and single family and conservation were broken out into separate acreages here. And now the proposal is to change that all to this mixed-use office residential, which has the higher intensity, higher density here. This table, again, is in your staff report. Shows you some of the breakdown here in the different types of areas. I think it's probably useful to point out here that the conservation management areas also go outside of the conservation land use areas. So these areas that are, the acreages that are under conservation actually are expanded out farther than that image that showed the light green wetlands. And I'll get to an image here later that shows you the conservation areas in some more detail. This again breaks down some percentages and the total acreages for those the different kind of districts here and the conservation management areas. And this, as we do, of course, shows the different criteria that are required for staff to go through for the review here. Sure.
Could I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
In looking at the PD layout, or sorry, the PD document, some of the statistics are different. And I know, does the PD just propose to rezone a portion of the property PD? Or is it, are we looking at all the property for the land use petitions and all the property? I mean, obviously, not changing all the land use without the whole thing, but.
The PD zoning is being applied to all those areas that are not in conservation.
Okay, but it is the northern and southern, is above and below the phase line.
Yes.
Okay.
The PD is only south of the phase line.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
So that's
the
the
PD
reason
is
that
only
I'm
south
sure.
of the phase line. The land use change would be both. That's why I think you're
Right.
saying things not match
Okay.
up.
Right.
Thank you, Forrest. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, sure. No problem. So we have the criteria that you are all familiar with here. I'll focus on some of those three areas that Sean pointed out. And we'll start here with the environmental impacts and constraints, just to bring you all and, of course, the public up to speed on sort of the environmental force behind some of this. So the property has two different strategic ecosystem designations. It's the Buck Bay Flatwoods to the east, Hague Flatwoods to the west, and actually there's also the Millhopper Flatwoods down to the southwest there. So this designation as a strategic ecosystem really triggered that further detailed environmental resource assessment and analysis. This is an image that shows where the wetlands are. And so this is, of course, you can see that the site has quite a bit of wetlands on here. And those have been put under the conservation land use that you saw on the earlier map. So if we go to this slide here as well, this shows that PD layout plan. In the black outline area, that again is the conservation. You can see that the green outside of where it's hash marked are these conservation management areas that are going to be in conservation and managed even though they are outside that conservation land use. So,
And managed means they'll continue to log.
we'll get to that.
I didn't hear you. What'd you say? They'll continue to what?
Continue to log harvest wood.
So that is part of the discussion in the change in the proposal. So this shows you the changes for the developable area essentially, and then also that conservation and the management areas. So this is the land use change criteria, and of course the rezoning criteria that you are all familiar with. And since you asked, I'll go ahead and go up to this image here. So this is an image that the applicant has provided. And this shows those conservation management areas, and then it's a little faint, but there is the line, the orange line there that shows the conservation land use areas. So you can see that in the light green here is it lines up with where those wetlands are. And then there is the dark brown area. That is the areas that are not in the wetland areas and are proposed are in planted pine. So you can see again that some of these brown areas are outside of the conservation land use. What has been proposed now is for the areas that are in green for there to be one more final harvest of timber that is in this area that will be initiated by the adoption or establishment of these conservation management areas and plans.
The bright green?
In the bright green.
Okay, and what happens to the areas that are in what I seem to be, if it's brown or dark green or whatever that color is?
In the darker color area, the dark brown, there is one more harvest, but that is triggered as development comes into play.
Yeah.
So to really address, I guess to wrap it up quickly, since we've got two staff members have gone over here with you, to address the city's the commission's main three concerns. The concern that the single family and the residential low was not dense or intense enough of a use. The applicant has come back to request the designation of the mixed use office residential to allow up to the 20 dwelling units and that more dense use. For the environmental constraints or the concerns with the silviculture, it has moved to more of that one-time harvest where the intent is that as the pine is removed from those wetlands and the wetland buffers, it will then actually allow some restoration of those areas, of the wetland areas, to take place faster than if the trees were just left there or if they were not addressed in some way. For the transit and the transportation, there were concerns that there wouldn't be enough, that the RTS routes or transportation for public transit had not been addressed. And so within the staff report and the proposal, there are more details for how the applicant and the developer will be responsible for the installation and development of those transit stations and RTS stations as it is determined that they are needed as development comes online. So with that, staff is recommending approval of these three items before you, the LD 22-105, 106, and 107, subject to the findings within the staff report and the materials that are presented to you all. And I do believe we have the applicant here that has a presentation as well.
Are there any other questions for staff before we go to the applicant? Some of us have been here for multiple iterations of this, but some of you are new to it, so.
I have a couple of questions. With the final harvest, will the applicant actively restore it or just truck the trees away and let it be?
I'll let the applicant speak into more detail for the actual conservation and management plan.
Is there any of that is just pure conservation at this point? Or is all of it going to be, is it all still in pines and it's all going to be managed?
I'm not sure I'm following.
There were some green areas that were not hatched, and I got the impression the green areas were in pure conservation, or are all of them in conservation management?
They were all part of a bigger conservation management plan, but there are areas within that plan where they're wetlands today and they'll remain that way.
So there's no trees to be harvested? That's what I'm trying to find out. I mean, one of the issues we had the last time was they were basically farming the wetlands. And so I'm trying to figure out if are we still in that status where a whole bunch of these wetlands have pine trees growing in them, and they're gonna come get them, or is some of it still preserved wetlands they haven't done anything to?
So there are, my understanding is that they are still operating under the bona fide silviculture, approved by the state of Florida.
Right.
There are some trees and some of their harvests that are within what we would designate as wetland buffers.
Right.
And some of that is proposed to continue with one more harvest.
Okay.
Any other questions before we go to the applicant? Okay.
Thanks, Boris. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. I'm Clay Swegger with EDA Consultants. That's great, thanks. I do not have a long PowerPoint presentation. I would like to make some comments to try to add to some of the information that city staff did a really nice job of giving you an overview and describing to you where we are in the process here. As staff mentioned, this property has been part of discussion for many years with the city of Gainesville. And going back, the most relevant date is probably 2009 when the land use approval was made by the city, establishing the land use map that's still there today with the policies that are still there today. There was quite a delay between then and now. A lot of that was given to the Great Recession and time that passed there. But in the last few years, there have been significant efforts to move forward with the zoning that's required on this property, which is planned development. That's required for the areas that do not have the conservation land use designation. A couple facts and figures for you. The entire planning parcel is 1,778 acres. It's a large property. The zoning that is part of these three applications is 744 acres. And so that's all south of a phase line that was established in the comprehensive plan to make sure development started from south to north, closer to the city today, moving northward. There's a conservation management area plan that is also part of this new application and improved application. A lot of work has been put into that application with city staff. We feel that it addresses the primary issues of wetland impacts and silviculture and some of the things that one of the board members brought up just a few minutes ago. The PD itself, almost half, about 46% of the acres, 345 acres in the PD, will be put into conservation management area. And of the entire 1,700 acres, approximately 1,100 acres, or 65% of this entire site, will be put into a conservation management area. And the way this is proposed to you in the ordinance for the zoning is that the conservation management plan would be approved as an exhibit to the zoning ordinance, meaning it takes place, it's effective essentially when the zoning is approved. In the past, there was questions about when the conservation management plan is approved. Is it later on? When do these protections that we keep talking about come into effect? Well, now it's very clear that it will be part of the zoning approval in that key timing element. And so there are three applications before you. A land use map amendment, some comprehensive plan text amendments, and the rezoning of the 744 acres to PD. And so the text amendments were at the city staff's encouragement to make some strategic improvements to what was already on the books, if you will, in the comprehensive plan. All of the application that you have before you, all these applications, there's mutually agreed language and conditions. There's no arguing. Everyone on the city staff side and the property owner is in full agreement. There's been a tremendous amount of work to get to that point. So I think that's extremely important to note. The improvements in general, as Sean touched on, was to address some of the comments that came from the City Commission in their hearing. And they wanted to address increased clustering of density, and be more clear about transit improvements, affordable housing requirements that would be prescribed in the zoning, low-impact development standards to try to protect the land and the water. That goes along with the design of stormwater systems and how they interrelate with stormwater basins. And the conservation areas. The conservation land use areas on the comp plan map would not be zone PD. Those would go to conservation. And now there's specific language about when that happens. Now it will be done incrementally in any area. Anytime there's a development phase that comes in the project area, at least a proportionate amount of that development area, that the area that's conservation land use has to be put into conservation zoning at that time. That's a minimum requirement. If you can bear with me here, I've got so much paper and such a little podium, so I just want to read a couple little things to you because I think it's really helpful. I thought the staff report was very well done, and it sounds better than anything I would say, and I agree with it. So I'm just going to read a paragraph to you. In the city staff report, it indicates that the proposal addresses concerns expressed of the prior applications by promoting denser and clustered development to establish an efficient and non-sprawling land use pattern that protects wetlands and environmentally sensitive areas. The current proposal sets aside 68%. See, I shortchanged this. We have 68%, not 65. 68% of the property from development, and a substantial part of that will be managed through stringent conservation management plan with applicable areas preserved in conservation easements. The development will also require the concurrent development of affordable housing together with market rate units, installation of community gardens allocated for each unit, and low impact development design with clustering, maximization of pervious surfaces, narrowed streets, and reuse of stormwater. There are a lot of details and conditions in here. Certainly, we can talk about any of those in any amount of detail that the plan board wishes to, and we can react to those, of course. Overall, the result here before you tonight is greatly improved applications that has been, I would say, probably years in the making at this point. I'd like to thank city staff very much for the hard work that's been put into this, try to bring something back that is a good thing and a positive thing for the property, and builds on what was already approved in the comprehensive plan, land use plan for this property. And it is important to remember that this land does have urban densities and land use densities on it as adopted in the comprehensive plan. So we need to work within those confines. I did want to try to clarify on a couple things, and Mr. Jackson and Galpin are here from Weyerhaeuser, and they understand their business much better than I do as far as silviculture and timber, but I did want to clarify a couple things that may not have been very clear, but in the CMP, Conservation Management Plan, there are very specific transition requirements and provisions for when silviculture ends. That was a big part of the discussion last time. I think I have that map in this slide deck. It looks like modern art, but it means a lot. The areas that are in light green represent areas of silviculture that will be transitioned that are not currently in a planted pine plantation. It means a lot of them are in wetlands, or they're not row planted pines. They're not planted pine plantation.
I didn't catch that. A lot of them are in rut?
Wetlands.
Wetlands, okay. So, okay. I don't mean to interrupt you.
Please, no.
I guess the problem I had with this plan the last time, and I'm trying not to hold that against you, is that there was a stated desire to continue silviculture indefinitely. They wanted, to have a little bit of urbanness, and then they refused to put the wetlands into conservation. It was going to continue to be actively farmed. I guess what I want to know, and I'm not entirely sure what a conservation management area is, And I want to know if at some point in the future that means this land will no longer be farmed for silviculture.
I can try to help answer that. So the areas in light green are silviculture areas that are not part of a planted pine plantation. And those areas, which is 500 plus acres, those are, as soon as the conservation management plan is approved, which would be approved at the same time as zoning, the silviculture activities cease. The areas in dark green would be transitioned out of silviculture activities over time when development activity occurs in those areas. And I know Mr. Jackson may, if I didn't answer that correctly.
Let me see if I've got this straight. The stuff in the bright green is currently not part of the plantation, meaning it's wet, too wet to, no?
It has not been planted
Okay,
now.
so-
It's not planted now. Some of it is jurisdictional wetland.
Okay. And so, well, are those areas, is there a plan to do a final logging in?
No, sir.
Okay, so those are really true conservation, unmanaged conservation?
Every bit of the land that's green, the 11 or 61 acres, and excuse me, I'm Tim Jackson with warehousing. Every bit of the conservation management area, which is both those green colors, all rights to development are removed the moment there's approval. The brighter green, immediately all rights to silviculture activity go away.
Okay.
The darker green.
You mean as in when this ordinance is approved?
Yes, sir.
Meaning once the new land use and zoning is approved?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then the darker green there, that land would transition out of silviculture as development takes place. So if there is an approval of a subdivision that's 10% of the developable land, 10% of the 390 acres, then 10% of that dark green has to transition out.
Okay. And so at the point that it's fully built out, all the silviculture will cease.
Yes, sir.
After a final cut.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. That helps a lot.
Okay, thanks.
I'm glad you asked that question because it's a big change from the previous discussion.
It is.
And you honed in on it very keenly.
No, it appears to be, I mean, to me, that was the big, Sean McDermott, we did in fact approve a PUD, which as I recall, was an expired PUD that we were bringing back to life, but we did require that all of the land that go into conservation, and in fact, that the SUP that we approved was dependent on that, and I think that's what ended up making the deal not work out.
I would suggest that all of those weak points that had come up over time, and maybe some of them resulted in a no vote from a plan board or city commission, those all have been addressed here. And we feel good about that. So if you have more questions as we go along, with that I will conclude though, and we can answer questions. We have several folks here, and appreciate the chance to bring it to you.
Any other questions, Mr. Hawkins?
I'm trying to track the number of units and density, and I can't tell whether some of the conservation areas overlap with some of the areas with the land use changing to MOR. And so I guess my question is, do they, and so because if they do, then it means that if you cluster the units, you'll have effective density higher than the 20 units per acre in some areas? Because I can do the arithmetic to look at total unit counts, but I'm not really sure what kind of, I'm trying to think of urban design, how it's going to work. Because it's really, 20 units per acre is a lot unless you're doing multifamily. I mean, if you're trying to do that with zero lot line or single family, that's, would you like to, that feels not. It's difficult. You can do it, but you got to pay attention to design and details and stuff.
There's no transfer of development rights from the conservation acreage. I kind of think that's the question that you're getting at.
Okay.
And the area, there's no area that's currently in conservation land use that's going to MOR. Does that answer, I think that's what your first question.
I think that's part of it, but the conservation management area it's larger than the conservation land use. And so some of that currently does have the other land uses that are changing, but it'll be part of the CMA, and this will apply there.
The PUD land use and the MOR land use are more than just the white areas, if we were to overlay them together.
There's a conservation district in the PD.
Okay.
If you, and I don't, you guys may have a map with the acreage, but if you look at the zoning, you can see that conservation district gives you the number you're looking for south of the phase line.
Okay.
I don't know what that number is north of the phase line, but the conservation district, some of that, you can see part of it's outside of the conservation land use. And one of the maps had the land use line too, which I don't know where that map is.
If you can look at that map, I know there's a lot of green. So the area with green with the crosshatch is area that has MOR. Most of that is MOR land use that will be put into a CMA. Because it's environmentally sensitive and protected.
Here's the big thing that I'm thinking about that I was hoping to see when I read the PD report, and I don't see in the PD report. If you just do the arithmetic on the MOR land use designation, so this doesn't include the PUD future land use. If you just take the full 900 and some odd acres, and that's exceeds the PD, that's for north of the phase line too. It's like 18,200 units. Right, so that's a lot. That's a lot of units. And if we are clustering in the middle so that our effective density is more than 20 units per acre, then I'm really concerned about urban design, right? So there's language in the PD that says we're going to transition in the mixed residential districts to a more suburban form. Well, if it's truly suburban, I'm not really concerned with urban design, right? If you're looking at, lots that are like a fifth of an acre or larger, who cares about urban design, right? Just stick a house within setbacks. But I don't see how you're going to have any suburban development if you're coming, even remotely close to the allowed density. That's great, and it seems to be consistent with where the city's headed. But then the concern is, in the PD report, all the standards for site design drop off outside the mixed-use core. So in the mixed-use core, you've got 2,000-foot block perimeter, great. You've got residential uses have to have balconies and porches, great. You have to have an alleyway. Garages and carports have to face the alleyway, great. You've got all these pictures of beautiful vernacular architecture, great. The language is squishy. It doesn't say we have to do that. It just says you kind of want to. That makes me a little nervous. But the other areas of the PD outside the mixed-use core don't have any of those design standards. There is no block size limit. There's no requirement for alleyways. What I kind of want to see are like conceptual diagrams of how you're going to put, like what your lot dimensions are. What's the ratio between single-family detached, single-family attached, multifamily, right? And so that we can have kind of a sense. I keep thinking of Celebration because of how much wetland there is, right? Like if you're going kind of in that direction, which the architectural pictures make it seem like you are, then that works. But the text of the PD report doesn't require that. And so what I get nervous is I keep driving around town and seeing the developments that say Terra, right, that are zero lot line, single family, right? I don't know how you define them, but right, and that's an outcome that I don't want, right? So if we have good design standards, we can accomplish the density and it'll work. If we don't, we'll get Terra Gainesville, and that's probably, I would say, my values, that's not the design direction. And I know there's people in the back of the room that know this stuff exponentially better than me and taught it to me, so I mean, I'm interested in their thoughts too.
I'll start real quick if I may.
Yeah.
So you threw several things out there. So the zoning area, the PD zoning area is 744 acres more or less. About half of that is going to go into conservation because it's wetlands or wetland buffers.
And that's conservation, city conservation?
It will be put into it'll be zone PD, that part will, but it'll be part of the CMP, along with the areas that are conservation lands.
It will be part of the CMP?
Yes, yes it will. So now you're down to 390 acres, some odd acres, and you've got mixed use central and mixed residential. So the zoning densities, there's no minimum for mixed residential, it's 0. The maximum is 20, based on that 272 acres, and then the mixed use central has a minimum of 668 units and a maximum of 20 units per acre, just on that acreage. The acreage, 121 acres. There's also provision in here that says no development in mixed residential until at least 300 units are in the mixed use central. So we can't start on the fringes and just skip the town center, the part that you are more interested in. Table 4.5, we do have standards and development requirements for both the mixed-use core and the mixed-use area. Admittedly, the core does allow for smaller blocks at 2,000 linear feet maximum, but the mixed-use area total is 2,600. Both allow zero lot line, alleys, and the like. So there's an effort to really try to concentrate in that core area, but the whole mixed-use area was intended to be more of that neo-traditional design.
But so looking specifically at 4.5, mixed use core standards look great. Mixed use, maybe, but like mixed residential, you've got minimum lot widths of 18 feet, which if you're coming anywhere near 20 units an acre, right, you'll need to use, but no standards for alleys, rear-loaded lots. I mean, and so that's not. I don't want thousands of units built on 18-foot lots with front-loaded garages, right? That's not what we're looking for. I mean, do you hear what I'm saying?
I do. We've been given certain direction to try to encourage the higher density and more flexibility of units, so it does allow that flexibility.
Well, then can we add requirements for rear loading, requirement that a certain portion be multifamily, kind of a sense of how the multifamily and the single family relate to one another, so we've got some sort of sensible urban design frameworks?
I think that we are before you looking for recommendations. So if you have recommendations, we certainly will listen to them. But that would be your prerogative.
Well, thank you, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyone else with questions? The applicant?
Mine are more like comments, I think, because I lived in that area on the south side of 441. I thought it was more wetlands than what it is, so I'm concerned about the wetlands and extension of infrastructure out there, water, wastewater in that area, because it's way out. Also, 121 is 2 lanes, a lot of. I live on Newberry Road now, and it's crazy busy with traffic, so I wonder about that area there with traffic. And then, why was this in litigation before with the city? Like, why did they sue? Because wasn't this?
Well, because at that time they asked for a PUD and zoning, and I think there was an expired PD there, and they wanted to keep the wetlands in silviculture. And some people were being difficult, so they needed to be conservation. They didn't want to do that, and they said we were preempted by the state from requiring that, as I recall.
Did the city prevail, or did White House?
apparently at this point, according to Sean McDermott, nobody's prevailed yet, and I don't know what that means, but it sounds like they're decided to try to work it out short of litigation. I don't know if that means one or the other is losing or what.
I'm happy to answer that if you.
Sure,
Sean, you're still here. like the voice from out of the,
Yes. I just took my medicine and rushed back when I heard some litigation stuff. Yeah, so I mentioned in the beginning, there's the two outstanding cases. The city prevailed on one of them in the circuit court level, and that has since been appealed to the district court level. That we will soon be, litigating that appeal. And then the other challenge that essentially that the city commission's denial was not consistent with the comprehensive plan policy here. That one is we went through a bunch of pre-suit process, and that one is scheduled for trial sometime in the spring, I think late March. But again, the litigation, the thing to keep in mind about any city litigation is often, there's been a final decision made, better or worse, and then the city can defend that moving forward, and if the city prevails, then that final decision stands. This is kind of an odd case because, like I said earlier, even if the city were to prevail in both of these suits, really the city's no further along. It's not something to necessarily celebrate, it's just we're back to square one, discussing exactly what this board is discussing tonight. And so that's why it's kind of moving concurrently with that. It really doesn't make any sense to wait for the litigation to prevail or not. It just makes sense to kind of move forward and see how the city commission wants to implement their existing comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Mr. McDermott.
Madam Chair, may I make one clarification with smarter people in the back of the room? The mixed residential area, the MOR, that part of the PD will be governed by the standards that are found in the U4 Transect. I hope that provides a bit of clarity for you.
That does, that's super helpful. Is that in the PD report? Or is that anywhere I'm reading and have not seen?
I can find it if you give me a minute or two.
Thank you, smart people.
All right, I think we have a stack of public comment cards. We'll go through public comment and then bring it back to the board. First up is Tim Martin. Welcome.
My name is Tim Martin. Hello. I'd like to read some comments that I submitted on behalf of the Sierra Club, which I'm a board member of the local group. On behalf of our nearly 6,000 members and supporters of the Suwannee St. John's Group, we respectfully submit our strong opposition to the zoning and comprehensive plan changes requested for these parcels. The Sierra Club has a long-standing commitment to smart growth principles and promoting infill development. The Sierra Club also strongly supports the creation of more housing with an emphasis on affordable housing. From our national policy guidelines, I quote, "The choice between sprawl and smart growth is one of the most powerful levers Americans can use to reduce greenhouse gases, air and water pollution, conserve habitat, and improve the health of our neighborhoods," end quote. The proposed development of this location incorporates several favorable urban infill concepts that in another context we would welcome. The higher density, mixed-use development, encouragement of Florida-friendly landscaping. However, there are many aspects of this project we find troublesome despite staff's rosy picture. Number one, the site directly abuts the high-value conservation easement containing Category 1 wetlands to the east. These serve as headwaters for multiple creeks. Per the applicant's own wildlife surveys, which I read the entirety of, the proposed development location serves as habitat for numerous threatened species of flora and fauna. Adding high-density development is anathema to keeping this area unpolluted, wildlife population stable, and water quality high. Two, the site is on the exurban fringe of the city, distant from its urban core. Just look at the maps, bordering both preservation and agriculture designated lands on most of its borders, and thus the very definition of sprawl. This is greenfield development, not infill, and modifying our comp plan to accommodate it is simply bad growth management. We strongly advocate the city protect our few remaining rural areas, not pave them over. Three, Current transportation infrastructure, as Ms. Certain alluded to, is not equipped to handle the large influx of residents per this proposal. I live in the area, I travel down that street very often. There's only one intersection available leading south toward Gainesville, with most of the expected traffic to head in that direction from the proposed site. This intersection of 440 and 121 cannot handle the influx, and I did a FOIA request. I did not see a traffic analysis, so I don't know if one has been done. There was one alluded to, it was not provided. It's unclear what options for expansion to that traffic light are available, and there's an active CSX line right there which could prevent any expansion there. 4, the site is not connected to any existing water utility infrastructure, the construction of which might encourage more sprawl in the area and serves as a serious risk to the highly sensitive wetlands directly to the east that I just mentioned. 5, the site is not serviced by existing public transit links, with city staff only recommending, and as Mr. Hawkins said, it's very squishy language, may require the applicant to take action to implement bus service and a multi-use recreational trail along 121 if conditions make that possible. That's staff report item number 6. And finally, there's a very low percentage of housing units slated for affordable lower income, thus offering little relief to the segment of population that needs most. And I think 5% was the number. That's not a number that we should be proud of. We urge the plan board to outright reject the zoning recommendation. If Gainesville wants to promote itself as a sustainable city and that adheres to smart growth principles, we need to do better than encourage this kind of urban sprawl. There's many alternative sites for the city's urban core that would better suit this sort of development. We understand the city is facing pressure from this developer, including the protracted legal battle referenced earlier tonight. But large-scale development here is not sustainable development. It's simply a bad idea. Please reject it. And I also, it would be nice if there was some outreach. I know there's a lot of work that seems that city staff has been doing with the developer. There has not been one meeting, as far as I know, for the public. We have not heard about this. We just saw signs on the side of the road last week. And it would be nice if we had a little bit more interaction with the developer on this. Thank you very much.
Next, I have Nemo Adams.
She's not speaking. She just left a comment.
Oh, okay. And I'll read it just for everyone's sake. It just says, I object to the land use change of this property. Is Aaron Adams here?
Those are also just comments.
Okay. I strongly object to rezoning and land use change of this property. Deborah Stuckey, did I get it right that time?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
That's me.
Yep, come on up to the podium, please.
My comments are pretty much down the line of what Mr. Martin said. I'm a resident between 121 and 231, and to me it's always been an agricultural area. I just found out about this like 2 weeks ago when you posted up those orange signs, and I read them. I was like in shock that you would propose such a large development in what is basically an agricultural area. We have 200 acres, my neighbors and I, that are cows, pigs, used for agriculture. And there's that Seminole Woods development, and then above, north of that are mostly farms, and it's a very rural area. And what you're proposing is to put in an urban development that is so far removed from the town. There's no bus out there. You can't even get like an Uber. They don't bring you food, with those delivery places. And, I know that my neighbors haven't really been given a lot of time and opportunity to comment on this, so this was pushed very quickly, and I don't know if that was, an intent, but I really feel like this should be delayed, and the community should have more of an opportunity to comment on it, because the transportation impacts, and most of all, the wetlands. I mean, we're flooded in water 3-4 months out of the year during this rainy season, and it's just, we have Rocky Creek flowing down our driveway, and I mean, it's just, it's a real, it would be a real shame and a real change to the natural, cultural environment of that road. Even though you have that railroad track which backs up for 2 miles because Amazon has their distribution, center there, and they have to get in police officers to direct traffic because it backs up so badly. That's with, just the limited traffic that we have, from Lake Butler down here. And it's really only one route south, so most of the congestion would be going south, and in terms of people would be leaving their homes to go south, in this development that you're proposing here. They're not most likely going north because there's nothing really up there. Lake Butler Prison, I guess, but there is not a lot in that area, is my point. So I am not a litigator or professional person, I'm just a neighbor, and all of my neighbors either didn't know about it or they're opposed to it. So if that makes any difference to the planning council here, I would like you to take that under consideration, or have meetings to let our neighbors know more about what is being proposed here, because this is not something that we want to live with, in our neck of the woods, so to speak.
Thank you. Next up, Kristen Rubin. And after her will be Stacy Waldrop. I apologize when I'm mispronouncing anybody's names.
Good evening, City of Gainesville Plan Board. My name is Kristen Rubin, representing our Santa Fe River Incorporated. In reading the City Plan Board report, I see that the recommendation is to approve by the staff. In 2017, the owner submitted a rezoning application, and in 2019, the Gainesville City Commissioners denied the application, citing concerns about the silviculture activity near wetlands and an insufficient development density and intensity pattern that encourages lower density spread of development. So why the change? Did the wetlands disappear? Do we not need a moderate to high recharge area for the Florida aquifer? This area is a stone's throw from the Santa Fe River Basin, and the Santa Fe River, the Suwannee River, and the Ichetucknee River are all experiencing water levels 30% lower than the normal from overpumping. These rivers tell us that the Florida aquifer is also lower because they are all connected. At the rate of withdrawals from Nestle, Blue Triton, and Big Ag, the springs are slowly dying. Reading from the city staff report, the site is a headwater for Rocky Creek, Hatchet Creek, and Turkey Creek, which also feeds the Florida aquifer. The need to stop overbuilding and to use smart growth measurements are our only opportunity to preserve the springs, to preserve the water we have. Weyerhaeuser sold off its container board packaging and recycling business for $6 billion. This was announced August 4th, 2022. They own over 12 million acres in the United States and manage over 14 million acres in Canada. Their worth is over $23 billion. I state this because they don't need to sell this property. So why is the staff recommending to the plan board to approve when the need is for our environment to be protected? Rezoning this for higher density build will not protect our waters, our lives. Our Santa Fe River Incorporated requests that you deny this application for rezoning and go back to the drawing board to work on smart growth that will help build, repair the current infrastructure for the people that already live in Gainesville, and think of how Gainesville can support its citizenry that will help prevent urban sprawl and be stewards of the state of Florida and of the city of Gainesville. Thank you, our Santa Fe River.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stacy Waldrop.
Hi. So I'm just someone that is concerned because I live out there. And I want to preface this with, I know you guys have a hard job because a handful of people making decisions for the masses is a huge responsibility. God bless y'all, no matter how you vote. But,
Sorry about that. That's the timer. They just reset it. I apologize.
Okay. Okay. So, and I know that you don't hear anything usually unless people are upset. But I talk to people all day long. That's in my job. That's what I do. And there's two things that always come up with them being upset. and that's GRU, of course. And, and the growth in Gainesville, it's just been exploding. Well, out there, it's really a special land. It's not, it is wetlands. I mean, I see the map and I kind of chuckle because literally my yard is underwater 3 months out of the year. It is really, it is a wetland and I feel like it should be protected. It's flood zone A. I mean, it's flood zone A, that's how I have to get my insurance. I believe that it doesn't know that the map cuts off right here. I don't know if that makes sense. I understand they own the property and replanted trees will still give them profit since it was zoned that way when they first purchased it. Let's see. So we have a very quiet country lifestyle out there. Ever since my son was a little boy, and I was there at the 2019, I was there. My little red-haired kid was there. He's 18 now, and he's like, Mom, if I won lottery, I would buy that place because he would live there. Out of all the places he could live, I'm like, are you sure you would move us to the beach? No, no, he would want to be there because he's always been there with the blackberry bushes, with, with the wildlife, the hawks, the bald eagles, the herons. We've learned to live with the flooding, because of all the good stuff that comes with it. We've got this big gray stork that comes and fishes in our yard. We have the song of the frogs, the armadillos, the raccoons, the bobcats, the woodpeckers, which I think some of them are starting to be endangered, the coyotes and the deer. And they can't speak tonight, but I'm sure they'd like to be considered. And I was wondering where the green space is going to be, how far back the city is going to keep pushing the green space. Gainesville has a small town appeal. I hear that with people that I talk to all day, but they see it growing fast. And the traffic that was mentioned, oh my gosh, yeah, there's no way that it would be able to sustain that. The traffic right now is with all the development that's over to the right with the UPS and all that, there's no way that the infrastructure would be able to sustain that. Infrastructure would be a nightmare. I wish I could show you pictures of the red-tailed hawks and the woodpeckers, and I just would hate to see that lost to development because there's no way that and Plum Creek, which was, I guess, them before, had easements built or planned for wildlife to cross, but I don't see that as being sustainable anyway. Please protect our way of life. The wetlands out there, they don't need to be overtaxed, and they're already struggling to keep up. My son, I told you, would like to live out there forever, but we live out there in the country by choice. We went out there by choice to be away from the city and, with chickens and ducks and etc. You can't put a price on it. It's priceless.
Thank you, ma'am. Can you please wrap up?
I sure can. Please keep it zoned to protect the special place. And check your conscience. Be good stewards. Okay.
Thank you. And last person I have a card for is Miss Sperling Wood.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Sperlingwood, and I did come before the City Commission, and I gave the city a whole bunch of pictures and videos of the flooding that happens. We have to the west, Deer Haven and Resource Recovery with the raised ground. Anytime there's a lot of rain coming down, it floods through under 121. The water is so deep. The dump is a little further to the north on 121. You'll see the cutout where that little area is. The Alachua County Waste Facility has 1.5 feet of water running across the whole area when it rains a lot. We have the city water coming down from Turkey Creek area. Under 121, there's 6 culverts that get so much water coming from one side of the highway to the other. When all that is filled up, where is all that water going to process and pass through? It is just a lot of water that moves across that land. On one part of it, you have Swanee River Water Management, and on this side, you have St. John's Water Management, as they were talking about. The water that goes through under where the GRU power lines, over there, there's another set of culverts that so much water passes under there. Right now, the water is diverted across all of our property on the back side there. When they build all that up, we will literally just always stay underwater. To the north, on that one area, there's gopher turtles all through that area, and I brought that up, that the gopher turtles were in there. And like they alluded to, at the crossing at 121 and 441, there's a railroad track that brings the coal to Deer Haven. When they had to repair the railroad track there, none of us could get in and out 121. Everybody had to go out around Racetrack Road and come around to Gainesville. Okay, that's the only way in and out of there. There are no other roads there. So if they put, how many houses did you speculate? 1,800 or 18,000? I was not sure.
18,200, but just, that excludes the PUD area, that's just the...
Right. So if we had that much traffic at that intersection, right now, we all know the brown roll when UPS runs out, when Amazon runs out, and one's at 9, one's at 10, everybody knows if you have an emergency, you're not going to get out that roadway. It backs up 2 to 3 lights in the morning from like 7 to 8:30, even to get out to make a left to go down 441 right now, at this time. So there would need to be a traffic study, and if you added more vehicles on there, it would have to be at least 4-lane down 121. And they would have to put additional culverts just for the water that moves across the land from the backside on the west side. I sent a lot of videos, a lot of pictures at the last time they were here in the little office up front, so I can get more of them out. But there's a lot of water that moves across there. There is a lot of wildlife. It's a beautiful wildlife corridor. One of the things we asked is, right now, with the 2 lanes, so if you 4-lane it and you add all that traffic, where is there going to be a wildlife corridor? You know, on Tamiami Trail, going across the Everglades where the panthers are and stuff, they finally had to build the road up so there's passageways for the animals to go under, back and forth across the highway. I don't know if there's something like that that could be involved in the plan. It's probably going to go through because it keeps coming back, but I just want to make sure everybody knows how much water does cross across there, and it is an amazing amount. And like I said, the Murphy water plant is behind us. They have 16 wells, and they pull that out from under the land there, going that way, and that replenishes the city water. So I don't know what we're going to do or how we're going to do it, but they really need to do a water plan somewhere with that and watch out for the wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you. So one thing I would mention just to all of you, and we'll see if anyone else wants to step up, but this is, we will be making a recommendation to the City Commission. So this will still be going before the City Commission again. So whatever happens here tonight, we're passing on a recommendation to the City Commission. So I want you all to understand that. There will be future meetings. I don't know exactly when they will be, but that will be happening. The other thing, as far as specifics for stormwater and traffic studies and things like that, this is just a zoning and a land use application, and all of those things and the details will be worked out with future development plans. So similar to what we said if you were here for the first item, we don't know the details of the building and what they're proposing yet. The same thing here. We don't know exactly what units are going where yet. Development plans will have to follow, and that's when stormwater will be addressed. That's when we'll do a detailed traffic study and things like that. So the city will review all of those things to match their code and the water management district and things as well at the time of a development plan. This is kind of that bigger picture comp plan and zonings. Just so everyone sort of understands, this is one step in the process, and we are just one meeting in that one step in the process. Just, because I don't, there's some new faces, there's some repeat faces here, but just so that everyone sort of understands where we're at. And if any, are there any other additional members of the public? I see you standing, but you've already had a few minutes, so let me see if there's anyone else first. Is there anyone else that would like to step up? You need to come to the podium so that they can pick up your, and please state your name for the record.
David Hill again. I share a lot of the same mosquitoes as a lot of these people. It's getting to the point to where I like them when I come to these meetings. But not that I go to a lot of them. It seems like the cart is in front of the horse, you know. I mean, I know you brought up all the logistics of that's the only corridor we have out there for emergency services. I mean, you really have to go around Racetrack Road or, you know, there's a lot to be planned out. The other thing is, can this be done in smaller steps? You know, like instead of 18,000, you know, that's a lot even over 2 decades. That's all I really got to say. It's just, there's a lot of things. Oh, one other thing. Is there a way for us to be notified in an easier way? Either cell phone, text?
So someone in planning would have to speak to that. If they didn't get a notice, is there a way for them to get on the list? I know there's something through the city clerk's website, but I am not an expert in that. Do you all know how people can sign up for notifications?
Probably the best thing, if you're here tonight, we'll take your information and make sure that you get notified when that next meeting comes for the city commission.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I signed in, but there was no place for a phone number, or email account, or whatever.
Yeah, be sure that you talk to, with Forrest or Juan before you leave, and they can take your contact information and, you know, kind of attach it to this item moving forward.
There is actually a database that people are allowed to sign up to be notified.
Yeah.
Either for all issues or for a specific issue.
And that, it's somehow through the clerk's office, but I'm not an expert in that, so. Anyone else that would like to speak to this item? Yeah, Mr. Martin, you can have 1 more minute.
Thank you.
Come up to the podium, please, though, so they can catch it on the microphone.
I appreciate you giving me another minute. I'll be brief. Hearing what you just said, out of respect, I have to say very strongly disagree. If you don't fight back when you're going for the zoning change, you lose.
Yeah.
I've been conservation chair for the Sierra Club for the state of Florida. I've been fighting these fights up and down the state and counties all across the state. If you give in and you vote for the change for the comp plan, you vote for change for the zoning change amendments, they get what they want eventually. This is where you make your stand and you stop it. If this board doesn't want to vote for it, then you have to go in front of the city and you have to fight it with everything you got, because once they change those zonings and once you change the comp plan, it's a done deal. So with respect, I disagree with what you said, and thank you for the time.
Thank you. Okay, 1 more person. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Dave Wilson. I've moved to Gainesville 50 years ago, and a couple months after I came, I went on a canoe trip on the Santa Fe with J.J. Brazington, and and I joined the Sierra Club and eventually became president twice. And 10 years ago, I was very involved with the battles with Plum Creek on the east side of Alachua County. And I'm really worried about the water. So what's the aquifer? What's happening in this area, and with 18,000 dwellings or people, whatever, it's going to be sucking water out of the aquifer. And you say, well, okay, there's lots of other, what we say, people sifting, drinking water, taking water out of the aquifer. But the bottom line is, we've got Worthington Springs, which is a mud hole, which is 20 miles north of this place. We've got Hornsby Spring and Post Springs, both under incredible stress. And as Bob Knight says all the time, it works its way downstream. So the springs that are most upstream will be affected first, like Worthington. And as you go down, as the aquifer slowly drops, you end up killing the springs. And as one who loves to paddle the rivers are it's getting to be slime crimes these days, and it's getting less and less pleasant, and it's really affecting the health and enjoyment of the area. So please vote against it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
My name's John Allen, 69-year resident of Gloucester County. I rode a bicycle from every spot there probably was downtown. Grew up in the Duck Pond area. Gainesville has worked our city. I love this place. Loved it. It's worked now. The big buildings and all the other things that are getting done in the city. My wife and I own property on 121. Excuse me, so do our neighbors. We're the only private property on the road from where the affected areas are at. We have other property past there, and like everyone else has said, when it rains, the county has to come out and put signs out. Water is crossing the road. I've seen more accidents because of neglect of 156 and 231. No signage other than some of the stop signs. The grass is only neglected out there. The trees are hanging over where you can't see the stop signs because it's neglected. They don't care about us after all. They want to just take from us what the reason why we moved there, I guess, made these people like myself, is to get away from this hustle, bustle, riff-raff, Gainesville, whatever. And I really enjoyed it. I've been there almost 56, 30 years, and I think we've on our other piece, I couldn't tell you how long, but we definitely don't want to give it up to 18,000 or 1,800 homes. The road never got completed as a Gloucester County. Always had signs there. We're going to finish paving this by June, blah, blah, blah. Well, it never got done. They pulled the signs up. Now there's only one layer of asphalt there in the center of the road where they neglected to come back with the other layers of asphalt. And with the extra automobiles and trucks, et cetera, out there, the road's going to get ruined. We fought the dump out there, did we not? And beat the dump that was going to put out there. We beat that. And there's no reason why we can't stop this either, because everyone knows it's wet. 80% of what you guys have displayed here is underwater. Your green, your dark green, your purple, your blue, whatever colors you want to call them. Go out there now. There's no place you can walk there that's not wet where you're bringing rubber boots. My yard is probably the highest elevation out in Monteoak, and it's underwater now. Monteoka Creek, Hatchet Creek, they all flew right there. And just like someone else said, those large culverts are gushing water out that the surfers would love it if they could cut the grass so they could have a good time out there. But I'm not going to take up a lot more of your time. By the way, most of us couldn't hear a word you guys are saying. Maybe them chairs brought up here would have been a little closer. Maybe those bigger screens so we could see instead of that little bitty micro television up there, you know. But we couldn't hear you. Thanks for your time. Do come out and visually see the area besides these little maps, and maybe you get a better picture of why we love the country.
I'm deaf as a rock and I can hear you.
I do apologize, we're usually upstairs.
I'm deaf as a rock and I can hear you.
I speak loud because I like to get the point across and like everybody to hear me. I don't want anybody to think that I'm mumbling. I'm not venting to you guys. I'm just a very boisterous person. Again, I love the Gloucester County, but just as soon as somebody comes along with enough money, I'm probably going to tell them to take it, and I'll move to Stark.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Bradford County. Lake Bluff.
I do apologize. We're usually upstairs, and there was another meeting up there that displaced us to the basement. So, yeah, I don't know what options we have as far as sound. We can try to speak up a little bit more. I didn't realize that was an issue, so I apologize. It looks like maybe there's 2 more people. If someone wants to step up, come up to the podium and just state your name for the record.
Hello, I'm Nemo Adams, and for the past 2 years I have had the privilege of growing up just off of 121. My backyard is a 20-acre property completely wooded and undeveloped, and it is the most beautiful place I have ever seen. I would really appreciate if it would be able to stay that way. We moved out here to be able to be away from the city and the sprawling developments. When I wake up in the morning, I don't want to go outside and see a residential neighborhood. That's exactly what we moved away from. If anything, affordable housing in the city would be the best way to go. Are the poor college students going to move out into the country 20 minutes outside, away from their school where they're going to have to drive? No, this development is both impractical and environmentally damaging. Please vote with empathy towards the wildlife and towards the forest itself. Thank you.
Thank you. And then one more person.
I was gonna come and watch, I wasn't gonna say anything. I've lived in this area, can't hardly tell, from about the middle of the map for 51 years. And what Teresa said about the flooding and what she said about the traffic is very true. It's terrible, both of them. Unfortunately, any building you're gonna do out there is gonna take away some land that hopefully will absorb the water instead of pushing it on top of us. But I really wanted to, just for clarification, in our map, there's a couple white blocks, one on the east side of 121, one on the right side. You map's backwards, okay? It don't really mean anything except for it makes you wonder how accurate the rest of the map is. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, bringing it back to the board for discussion, or I think we should probably make 3 separate motions. So we'll start with the first one, but we may want to have some general discussion first.
I'm not voting, so I can't. I'm just here for the discussion. I'm just.
I want the PD report. I want the PD report to tell us what we're going to get. And I like the broad descriptive language about traditional neighborhood development, but it doesn't seem translated into the standards. So I think I could get to a yes, but I would like to continue this and address. That's like a very foundational issue. I trust representatives of the applicant to do good things, but they're talking about a 30-year build out. No idea who's going to own this property a decade from now. No idea who's going to build the homes. We need to firm up what the vision is, and it needs to be expressed in the standards in the PD. And I'm comparing the standards in table 4.5 with the U4 zoning district, and they're not the same. So I don't. We gotta nail this stuff down, and I think I could get to yes if we nail it down. But that's what I would like to do this evening.
Make a motion.
Is that what you want to do?
I mean, honestly, I think the development, it's sprawl, whatever it is. I know we have to do something, and it's, the development, we have no development in front of us, but it can be something, right?
Well, and I would volunteer, and I don't know how to fix this, but we managed to convert sprawl into infill, and I appreciate the staff saying this isn't infill, but this is just about as far out of town as you can get. It wasn't really in town. I live, off of 53rd, and it's a big clog all the time. I can't imagine what happens with this traffic. I can get to the conservation issue helped. I appreciate that. We obviously moved away from farming the wetlands anymore, and I appreciate that. I would like to see what the standards are, because I agree with Mr. Hawkins. We will likely have another owner at some point, and we would like to make sure that the standards pass down, that all the assurances we get from people I do respect won't be there anymore because it'll be a different owner. So I would support a motion to continue and see if we can get the PUD report and make sure that we have standards nailed down. But ultimately, I suspect something's going to go here whether we want it to or not.
Mr. Jackson, do you have?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the board. Tim Jackson with Weyerhaeuser. First, this parcel was, received land use approval back in 2009, and it still has the same owner. So I would just put that in front of you.
It's only
we're committed here.
13 years.
Second, the land use approval is in place. We've worked very hard with the staff over a long time to get to a joint recommendation for the zoning that's consistent with that land use. So I would ask you to either vote this up and recommend it yes, or vote it down and recommend it no to the City Commission, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. 10 seconds. What was the reason the first time that this was turned down in 2000 and whatever it was, 7, 8, 9? What?
There's a very, very long history on
Exactly.
this property.
It's the same
I mean, it would
exact
be very
problems we have
complicated.
No,
No.
much of what the problem was back then has been fixed with what the proposal is now.
It's been fixed.
They've agreed to eliminate the silviculture in a phased elimination and turn it into conservation. Sorry, Madam Chair.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would say that there's been a number of applications and, as was stated, I think the city has worked with the applicant to resolve the issues that were part of the last denial. And so that's why we're looking at it again now.
I had read some tidbits in the paper here and there.
So we can't go back and forth at this point.
Weyerhaeuser and the city
Sir,
having
I'm sorry.
button heads about this.
I'm
that, and
sorry,
the other.
we've already had public comment. We're trying to get to a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead. I need to go home anyway. This is doing.
Okay, so with sort of those thoughts and with the applicant and landowner's preference, do we have a motion?
I want to respond positively to Mr. Jackson's request, but even if we vote it down, it's going to show up with a staff recommendation on the City Commission agenda. If we have substantive changes that we want to make, the most effective way to have the applicant and staff work on them is to continue. Right? It's not going to change even if we vote it down.
I mean, there could be a comment to first, staff to try to flesh that out with them, or I don't know.
Our
We've done that
recommendations don't
before.
even show up on City Commission
but-
agendas. Like, it's not.
Mr. Parsons,
Madam Chair.
welcome.
Thank you. I would humbly maybe suggest a third way, which I think potentially would have the plan board forward a recommendation to the commission. And then perhaps, I think to the member Hawkins' point, one thing the plan board could consider is just simply recommending the urban 4 transect standards for the mixed-use office residential areas from the existing code. That would be you could forward on recommendations with adopted design standards that are already in our code without necessarily having to draw them up, broadcloth, or potentially delay this further. So, just a suggestion.
Is there a reason to decide more quickly other than, the only reason I can think to hurry it is if there's an expectation that the current commission would approve it and the future commission is a question mark. Is there some other reason to not get it right before we vote on it?
I mean, I don't know if Mr. McDermott wants to, or has any more insight in terms of the timing and pace of litigation with the timing. I think we are trying to bring this back before the city commission for some resolution one way or the other. Currently the litigation is paused as we're bringing this through, so we're trying to do it in the most expeditious manner possible.
So what if we recommended that U4 standards apply to all of the parks that are on?
And I think that's better than what it is, but I mean, when you look at master plan communities with traditional neighborhood development design standards, there's typically a lot of detail on what urban transects.
We're not even at that point.
That's exactly what a PD report and PD layout plan are for. Our code describes it in that way. It is the only tool that exists to let us do that. We can't do that through the platting process because we can't deny a design plat for not meeting those standards. There's literally the PD report is the document that should include those standards if we apply it.
Mr. Schwager, you got anything to say?
And I want to emphasize that I don't think that a solution is impossible. I mean, maybe it is. I mean, I'm shocked that I'm one of the more positive speakers on the application. But it's not. I don't think it's there yet.
I appreciate the chances to comment a couple more times here. As Mr. Jackson mentioned, that this land use has been in place for 13 years, and there was a comment about smaller steps. And I would like to just reiterate on the PD, the comprehensive plan has a phase line. So there's already a bisection of the property for phased development. And then within that, there's a subsection, only less than a quarter of this land is proposed for PD, and half of that is going into conservation. The conservation area is 65% of this land. Someone may correct me, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be the largest CMA to ever be approved in the history of the city of Gainesville. And it's going to correct a lot of the issues and concerns that were brought before. So I'm just trying to go back to the bigger picture. As I mentioned to Member Hawkins, there are specific recommendations that the board would like to see. We respect those. There are factors involved that are unique to this, then that we would really respectfully ask that you recommend either approval with any changes and modifications you see fit, or recommend denial if you don't think the application is sufficient. It's a unique situation. We really would respectfully ask not to be continued due to other factors. And I would not ask for that under about 95% of the circumstances.
I'll see if anybody wants to make a motion. I'm going to decline to make a motion until I see where people are more specifically. What do you want to do?
Take a run at it.
Yeah, I think where I'm at is just being really conflicted with all the environmental concerns and density all the way on the edge of the city, transit, even having a bus route, it's going to take you an hour to get to the grocery store or anything, any reasonable things, whether it be a job or things like that. So people are going to have to rely on cars. I think that development out here I understand that's already the land use, so I understand why denial doesn't really help much because the commission doesn't even see a recommendation, and we can't input any changes if we just recommend denial. So I'm a little bit conflicted on that.
Well, first of all, this is a long-term build-out, so the day we approve it doesn't mean there's going to be traffic clogging the road. And obviously there's substantial amount of improvements that need to be made forward as they go through these phases of development. I mean, it's not going to just be all at once. So that part doesn't concern me that much. I'm way happier with the way the wetlands are being treated, which before they were going to be farmed, continued to be course, this area has been farmed now as a tree farm for decades. So, I mean, that's an improvement actually from what's actually there now. I'm inclined to make a motion to approve based on the staff report and with the application. I guess we have to.
So, so that's my question, I guess, is maybe you all can elaborate a little bit more, because I can't vote on these things. It seems like the second item, the PD zoning, is where Mr. Hawkins' concerns primarily are.
Yeah.
So, and this is just, maybe so we've heard sort of the feedback from, the applicant wanting us to do something. I mean, if we can take, if people feel comfortable on 2 of the 3 votes, and then the third one we make some kind of at least recommendation to the city commission, one way or another, with conditions, with another standard. I mean, it seemed, and I don't know, maybe we need to talk about them more individually, but do you think you all can get to some kind of motion on the first item? And maybe, I understand they're all connected, but.
This
Can
is
I
like,
ask a
I could
question?
probably afford, I could do
here's like an aside, right? I did the arithmetic on the office residential, and it's a big number. I don't think they're gonna build 18,000 units. Like, that's clearly not gonna happen. But then we rely on the PD to give them more specific information of what they actually are. Like, we need all these things to, I don't like the idea of, I'm comfortable voting on them separately. I don't like the idea of approving some and denying others, because we need to be looking at them in conjunction. I don't know. Maybe part of what is frustrating me is the applicant and staff are motivated by the litigation and an expectation of what the current city commission will do. And so we're kind of overlooking things that should be part of our planning process because we have an end in mind. And I don't know if that's the case, but that seems like the most obvious explanation. I don't know if that's a good answer, but I don't like the idea of approving some and denying others for that reason. I'm happy to get a motion on the floor and vote on it.
Have at it.
Well, my motion would be to continue. If you want to make
All
a motion
three,
to approve,
that
I'm
would
happy
be
to vote
your-
against that if we can get a second to it.
Okay. I'll take a run at, on the land use, I would move that the plan board approve petition LD 22-105 LUC based on the staff report and the information we've raised here today.
Okay, do we have a
Do
second?
landowners get any say in this?
You've already had your say, thanks.
I'll second that.
And not one was for
Okay, so
it.
second from Mr. Nay. Okay, for the 4 members that are here, Mr. Castillo, do you mind doing a roll call vote? Because I think we're going to have some level of a split potentially.
Robert Ackerman?
Yes.
Sophia Borgaro?
No.
Thomas Hopkins?
No.
Joshua Yang? Yes.
Okay,
So the motion fails.
yeah. So you guys have to work something out.
I move we continue petition LD 22-105 LUC with the request that the applicant continue to work on the PD standards to address plan board concerns.
This is Sean. If I could speak up to this item right now. I know Member Hawkins is motioning to continue. I will just advise this board that motions to continue, much like we did earlier tonight, generally are done for the opportunity for the landowner to come back and revise something specific that the board is requesting, number one, but number two, that the landowner has shown, it's usually their initiative, like Amelia mentioned earlier, for them to do that, to bring it back to you. In this case, representative of the landowner has asked for specific direction for either a vote up or down. And, and so it would, I don't know what value a continuance would even be, given that the landowner themselves is asking for, a yes vote or a no vote. And so, but I would encourage that as well to be, that the most productive thing would either be an outright recommendation of denial or a recommendation to approve with whatever type of specific conditions you want to in there. And I think Mr. Persons has mentioned some, Mr. Swager mentioned some, so I think that would be, a recommended process moving forward for this.
Did we have a second?
Sophia, did you second? I don't think so. No, we didn't have a second yet, so you can amend or withdraw.
Yeah, that's what I want to do.
Okay. Do we have a second to continue? There's a third option if we don't have a second here, but that seems to be the last option.
I could switch my vote to no. They want it up or down, but that's fine. I'm fine with doing that.
Okay, so that fails for lack of a second. So now we need another motion.
I'll renew my motion to approve petition LD 22-00, -105 LUC, based on the testimony that we've heard here today, along with the staff report.
Second.
Okay, a second for Mr. Nay. Mr. Castillo, can you do a roll call vote again on this one and see if you can pull it off?
1 second, I'm trying to work this strike. Oh, for Pete's sakes, there's only 4 of them.
Wait, hey, can I interrupt for a second?
Yep.
If we have a motion on the floor to approve and it fails 3-1, we'll have taken no action. If the goal is to, if we think we want to deny it and the goal is to push that through, the motion should be to deny it and have it pass 3-1.
I withdraw my motion.
I would make a motion to deny petition LD 22-105 LUC.
Okay, do we have a second for Sophia's motion?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Nay? Juan, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion to deny now.
No.
I can't vote.
No. Joshua?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for coming. Okay, so item 5, can we get a motion on the next item?
Move that we deny petition LD 22-000106 VON.
And a second?
Second.
Mr. Castillo?
No. Joshua?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Sophia?
Yes.
Okay, on to E6. We can get a motion.
I move that we deny petition LD 22-107 CPA.
Second.
Okay, a second for Mr. Nay. Mr. Castillo?
Bob? No. Joshua?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Sophia?
Yes.
Okay, Thanks, guys. Took some work there.
I just wanted to be a no, but you said nay. That's all I get excited about.
There you go.
Like, I can't say no.
You guys have a good one.
You don't get to say it enough.
I don't get to say it enough.
Okay. Are there any other public comments before we start to wrap things up? Oh, sorry. We just voted to recommend denial to the city commission. There was a lot of discussion. Okay. Any other member comments? We still have a couple of items here, so.
I know, but what motions will we have to take to make it maybe possible wild spaces, wild places, or has that been considered?
That's not under our.
That's not under planning's review?
And I will tell you, there's a vote to renew wild spaces, public places coming up in November. They normally require a list of approved projects. So if you want to try to get something on there, you got to get going.
Okay.
I have a member comment.
Okay.
Thank
Ma'am, thank you all.
Thank you all.
I think.
It is completely unfair to the people we serve that we can't ever get a whole turnout of people. And I think that is a disaster. I understand, we have 5, but we have 2 chronically missing members, and it's just not fair. Pardon me?
Yeah, I think
I know.
James is planning to not reapply, so it'll be an open seat. But I don't know when, I mean, there are attendance rules as
Which
well.
are not
and-
being enforced.
So I don't know if there's any steps taken, like does the clerk's office send like a warning letter if you miss a certain number of meetings? I have no
Or
idea.
the 6th time, whatever it is anyways.
You just get removed.
There's no warning?
We used to circulate an attendance sheet with the agenda. It'd be great to keep that
Yeah.
updated so we all know, we keep track.
We used to get it
Yeah.
I'll keep eyes on Bob, I'll keep eyes on me.
Yeah. I mean, I came with all my hardware, not able to vote on things because I missed 2 meetings. I had to actually mess up my attendance. So, I think that's a good point though, the attendance sheet, and that also had the terms and like when terms expired was also useful.
Yeah.
Because like, I for one have no idea when my term expires. It's not this year, but I have no idea when it is. And it gives us an idea of that as well. So if we could bring that back, I think it's a helpful piece of information.
You and I both expire next year.
Yeah.
I'm up now, I just
Yes,
like
you
reapplication.
expire in November along with James.
So my other, and it may kind of blend into sort of announcing the next meeting date, my other, my member comment is if we can like firm up, and it's related to the attendance issue, but we're also getting to the end of the year, right? And I know that we usually move November and December meetings around. I can't remember what we decided, and with the new city website, I can't figure anything out. Like, we used to have a list of dates on the website, and it's not there anymore.
And
So, can we?
Traditionally, we didn't have a meeting in November, and we had one in early December that would count for both of those months.
So, but for some reason, in my, like, Google Calendar, I have a meeting on November something, or early November, which I don't know if I just like made that up, or if we had an early November meeting date at some point. So if we can just get those dates emailed to us, as well as, my other question is whether we sent you some dates for a possible workshop in October, but it's on the 17th. Okay, and do you know where that's gonna be? Are they, in the past, we've done it. Okay.
It was on the 17th until this afternoon when the commission took the date for exclusionary zoning, so.
Oh, great, okay.
And I think they basically pushed it, I think, until next year, so.
I think that makes sense.
So,
I
you guys
had
are
a
off the hook for
conversation
now.
with Mr. Castillo that it probably doesn't make a lot of sense to go through all of that comp plan stuff that this current commission isn't gonna vote on.
They must have
But
heard you.
It probably makes sense to brief all the new commissioners that will be voting on the comp plan. So you think it's gonna be January, February?
That was, I mean, they didn't start out that way from like the discussion this afternoon, but the mayor was like, this probably should go to the new commission, and so I'm guessing that that's probably, the direction we're gonna take, so.
Okay, so not October, no
Not
workshops in
October, right,
October.
right.
Good.
So we're looking at a workshop with the commission in the new year.
The
And
new commission.
is the October 4th meeting on exclusionary zoning canceled and moved to the 17th, or is that something else?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, it fell on Yom Kippur, which, yes, so that got moved. It was moving around a couple of times this afternoon, so, but that's where it is now, so, yep, same time.
I have a member comment.
Yeah.
Is it super unrealistic to ask that the planning board recommendation be listed under staff recommendation or somewhere more like visible? Because I feel like we've definitely spent a lot of hours in some meetings
We don't,
and like.
we no longer get our recommendation transmitted to the commission.
It's sometimes.
It used to be added under the staff recommendation. Are we not doing that
I don't
anymore?
see it when I look at agendas for the city commission.
Your recommendations are submitted with
But it should be like on your slides.
I think the
Like
agenda.
amend the slides.
That is usually part of our presentation.
But like for those commissioners who we know exist that don't look at
No,
that, can we put it like right?
reports and our slides and all that specifically states what the recommendation is. We have staff recommends X whatever, city plan board recommends X whatever, so that's clearly stated. But if that needs to be formalized.
So I know there's a lot of new planners as well, and so maybe it's just a like template, bring everybody up to speed, make sure there's consistency. Maybe it's just something to review with everybody.
Okay, so for example, last week, or, yeah, they voted on that second Ave building, and I looked at the agenda, and like, nowhere did I see city plan board recommended denial. I mean, I guess just where it says staff recommends approval, I didn't
Yeah,
see
so
that.
we're the local planning agency. Under statute, we make recommendations to the commission on land use, not staff. Now, I'm not trying to say staff shouldn't make recommendations, but the headline recommendation that comes from the local planning agency should be the default decision. The commission can make any decision it wants. It doesn't have to take our advice. It can take staff's advice, it can take its own advice. And I, really strongly endorse that, right? Commissioner Seiko made a point last week, like, we get elected, right? That's exactly correct, it's their decision. But the hierarchy of information that's presented to them should be first and foremost, this is what your local planning agency says. And it's not, there's no repercussions if we don't do it that way, but I feel pretty strongly that that is how the information
Well,
should
if
be
we're not
presented.
doing it at all, then we could all resign now.
This may have been something, I
Yeah,
mean.
we still have special use permits.
In the past, that was certainly something that showed up in the agenda item. It was there, it was obvious.
Well, I know, that's why
Some of it may be-
That it's switched over with the e-scribe, but.
Some of it may be the new software, some of it may be new staff. I've noticed
Yeah.
in other interactions with the department, things aren't uniform between different staff people, so it might just be a matter of some training and reminders.
Yeah, both of those are fixable. We can definitely get that recommendation in with the agenda item and then of course go over with staff for being sure to include that on the slides. And it certainly should be in there in the staff report.
Great.
100% of it.
Thank you very much for hearing that.
And it should tell what the vote was.
Yeah, if it was a close vote or unanimous, or I think that is useful as well. I agree. Any other member comments? Okay, so we will just have one meeting in October on the 27th, and then if staff can send us, I would send around whatever we had at some point as a template November, December date, and maybe just check with everybody that that's still okay, or if we need to shuffle those dates, let's do it on the earlier side. If you can help us work around the holidays, we would appreciate it.
Yeah, ideally, it's the first week in December covers both.
Or I think we've done the second week in December because of the commission, but I know they just announced some breaks. So if they're on break the first week, we may be able to meet the first week of December, but I think we've typically done the second week of December because the room should be open. Who knows? Great, and I don't know if I mean, we aren't down here very often, but is there like a sound thing that can be done for people sitting over there, or?
The sound currently is at the highest level without producing any feedback.
Oh, okay, okay, got it. All right, well, thank you all, appreciate all
You
your
guys
hard
are
work.
awesome. Late nights.
Yes. We will adjourn.